What's up, nerds? Happy Monday. Welcome back to another episode of Kanode Knows. I almost didn't have one for this week, but fortunately, the homie Justin Kosman came through and had some time this evening on this lovely Mother's Day. And if you don't know who Justin Kosman is, he's a photographer and videographer and BMX rider that moved from the Midwest to California and chased his dream and kind of worked out. And he's always had he's always been up there to me as far as like business in BMX goes, and not being afraid of money or asking for money or knowing value, and just being a businessman within the media world. And so I remember in college they told me to find a mentor in the space that I wanted to get into, and I was gung-ho on being a BMX videographer. So I asked Justin Kosman if he would be my mentor. I forgot about it until like we were recording this, but Justin Kosman, my business and videography mentor, is on the show today, and it's I think the longest episode I've ever recorded. And I was going into it thinking it was just going to be quick and maybe 2 hours long and mostly about BMX and memories, but it turned into just mentorship and mindset and business and money, and a damn good one, because I get to ask questions to him that I'm genuinely curious about, and I get to actually share that with you guys, which I think is pretty neat. So things like, how do you word a proposal to Vans to create Vans Illustrated, that type shit, like just the behind the scenes business stuff. So Justin, thank you for coming on the show. And yeah, I hope you guys all enjoy this. This will be the first week where I'm running. I should shout out Sumo Sensei is his name on Instagram, but I saw something on his story, like he does shit with music, so I impulsively was just like, hey, make a theme song for the show. Have it say, here's the thing about BMX, and Kanode don't know shit, or Kanode knows, or something. So that's going to play after I'm done rambling here, and then we're going to get into the Kosman episode. Oh, so in future episodes, I think next week or the following week, I'm working on getting Preston O'Kurt and Jeff Z on the show. And I had this thought that it would be fun to premiere somebody's video for their first time on the show, so that you can almost guarantee somebody in the BMX industry, like Jeff Z, for example, is going to watch your edit when it comes out. And so if that's interesting to you and you have an edit that's almost ready to release, email it to kanodeknows@gmail.com, and I'll get back to you and let you know whether or not I'll air it on the show and have it be a little segment. So video premiere of the week could be a fun little thing. I think you will like this episode. He kind of towards the end turned it around to me to ask goals, and I was like, oh shit, I'm sharing a lot right now, but I'm stoked. It's a good episode. You shall enjoy it. You'd kind of be surprised by how much money Justin Kosman was making in BMX, but it was from outside of BMX, so it's not like he's sucking from the industry. He was kind of generating a thing, and yeah, it's dope. Stoked on it. So check out this theme song. Let me know what you think, and if you can do better, send me one, you know? Here's the show. Here's the
thing about BMX. No.
Hey, Justin Kosman, let's make a podcast.
Let's do it. Same day.
Yeah, for real.
How was Mother's Day, by the way?
Through. Oh, it was fantastic. Every year is always just a nice time. We actually had another older couple come and crash the party because their kids were away, so I got to be the hero that showed up with 2 bouquets of flowers and give one to my mom and one to this random lady that I just met and make her feel good. It felt cool. I had some lobster eggs Benedict. Sheesh.
Dang, okay.
What about you? You look great. You just come back from something too?
Yeah, I was in Colorado all week shooting road bikes and
for Mother's Day.
Oh, my mom lives in Illinois. I'm in California. We see it like once a year. So, little FaceTime video. Sent out some cards a week in advance, and my wife's mom lives in Michigan, so we have to plan for all this stuff in advance.
Who out of you two handles the planning? Are you the planner or is she the planner?
I am, only because I missed Mother's Day one time, and it was real bad.
Oh, that'll sting for sure.
So I'll remember that one for a really long time. So yeah, out of guilt and regret, I and PTSD. Yeah, I a month ago I was like, oh, is it this Sunday? Is it this? So
Yeah, dude.
yeah.
Somebody mentioned it like 4 weeks ago. I heard it in like a random conversation, and I was just like, "Wait, fuck, is it now? Like, is it this weekend?" I have the same kind of trauma. It's funny, but it's dope that we got moms. Not everybody's lucky enough to have a mama.
Yeah, man, she drove me to the BMX track, and I mean, even before that, we had a bunch of like girl babysitters when my brother and I were growing up because my parents both worked. And then, dude, just like randomly, she got us like a boy, and we're probably like 6 and 8 or something. Like can't really be left alone. We'll burn the place down. But she got like a boy babysitter from church, and this dude shows up, and he's got like Doc Marten high tops and like spiky hair and like a Fugazi shirt. And my mom had no clue. But anyway, this dude was bringing over like issues of Thrasher magazine, and we're like, what?
Damn.
We didn't really. Yeah, he was a skateboarder. He had like a half pipe in his yard, and so he started taking us to his house when he'd have to babysit us, and then eventually he took us to Rampage Skate Park when we were like probably 10 years old, and the one that Rick Malterno started after he left Haro, and that was probably like 1991. So like I grew up in Illinois, like in a farm town. So the fact that any of that shit happened was like pretty incredible.
Rare. Yeah.
But that's kind of how it all got kicked off. And my mom was like, just none the wiser, like she didn't.
Yeah. She's like, he seems like a nice guy. He's got the spiky hairs, but I don't know. He seems okay.
Yeah. So that went on for a few years. It was awesome. And then it kind of turned into BMX and ramps and everything. But she didn't, at no point was she like, hold on a second, this seems sketchy.
Yeah. Good mom.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like the mom's senses might kick in. You can't judge a book by its cover. That kid was probably pretty nice, but he looked the part of like punk.
He was cool, but when like older kids started coming over to the house, like when I was in junior high, and there were guys that should have been out of high school were like coming to pick me up, to go ride bikes. I feel like my mom should have stepped in and be like, I don't think so.
Yeah, can I get a background check?
Yeah.
Something.
Man.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm glad she let us do whatever we wanted, man, because it's pretty awesome growing up with all that freedom. And yeah, I don't know. I don't see that really happening now with kids being babysat by iPads and stuff. It's kind of sad.
Truly. And with location shit, and there's no way that what you and I got away with when we were coming of age could be done now, unless you just really have parents who don't give a shit. But it's like, it is kind of lucky, the series of events that end up happening to us that push us into, like, it's all kind of subtle things here and there. I saw my first like DVD over at my buddy's house who had backyard ramps, and the fact that I was over there is like lucky so that I could get that experience. And then da-da-da-da-da. Next thing you know, we're making videos and we have a BMX podcast 16 years later, 17 years later. What was I mean, you know what I was thinking as we were just starting? I was like, some people, because you haven't been very active in the BMX world as of late, I don't think, unless I'm wrong. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. I would say 2019, I think I did my last BMX trip for Vans, I believe. And then I think my last BMX shoot was, it was March 2020 with Brock Rayford. And it was that Louisiana Mardi Gras shoot, that Red Bull project he did in the warehouse.
That thing was incredible.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. It kind of, I think they were going to do X Games in Louisiana somewhere, and that was like a partnership. And then with the pandemic, like it just didn't end up happening. So I think that was probably supposed to be bigger than it was, but I probably did. Yeah, that was like the last one I did.
So my question to you now would be, how would you, if you had to give a elevator pitch for Justin Kosman and BMX, why are you so important that you're on Kanode Knows, the second best BMX podcast in the world?
Well, you probably had very few people that you could call that would answer your call on a Sunday that you haven't already talked to. So in a lot of ways, I might be at the bottom of the barrel. And that's
actually, you're the first phone call I made, honestly.
Yeah, but I
I have
mean,
Jeff Z and Preston O'Kurt that are gonna do it, but neither of them can do today. Anyway, you are don't undersell yourself, motherfucker.
no, I haven't done any BMX stuff. I'm trying to think of. I mean, yeah, I don't know. I've seen Calvin a few times. Justin Benthium, he's worked with me a few times. So has Calvin. Calvin
Good
was on
lads.
a couple Puma shoots. But shit, I don't know. Like,
Do you get what I'm asking though? Like a quick pitch, not a pitch, but like for somebody who's never heard of Justin Kosman, who are you and what have you done?
let's see. So I moved out to California in 2003 and got a job working for ESPN's X Games TV production. So I helped them write a lot of the programming that went into the live shows for ESPN's X Games, probably from 2003 to 2011. And then after that, I got involved in print media. Well, during that time, because that was only like 4 months at a time. So throughout the rest of the year, I was working with Ride BMX a little bit, Transworld BMX. I was working with some motocross magazines and quickly got involved in the advertising photography side of it because I really wanted to be on staff at a magazine back then, but they were all pretty staffed up at the time. And so really I just had a lot of time to shoot and ride myself. And so I ended up shooting with a lot of pros in California, like in Huntington Beach and LA. And I just ended up selling that stuff to their sponsors, and it quickly spun up into working for Red Bull and Vans, which I spent probably 12 years doing a lot of special projects for Red Bull and Vans BMX. Vans BMX, I'd say, was kind of my how most people knew me in the industry. I worked with the BMX team, shooting all their print ads, and then eventually doing a lot of video content and video projects and ads for them. And then,
Who are a couple pros? When you say 2000, like in the early 2000s, you're linking up with pros. Were there pros that you first met where you were like, holy shit, that's Gootler or whoever?
Yeah, it would have been like Robbie Miranda. So I raced growing up and dirt jumped. And so that was, and I mean, before that, I knew like Rick Moliterno and those guys from Iowa. But, it was really just guys in the magazines. And when I moved to California, I was only a few miles from Sheep Hills. And so, I just ended up riding Sheep Hills every day. I met Chris Moeller and Neil Wood and Robbie Miranda and Hucker and, Todd Lyons and
Legends.
Yeah, fucking legends, man.
Legends.
They were on, they were like tore out of magazines on my wall down in the basement of my parents' house for years,
So Yeah.
So I met those guys and started shooting stuff for S&M and then like DC shoes. I'm
going to figure out a nice quick elevator pitch for you since you just refused to do it. You just start telling your story. I'm like, all right, any photo you've seen in a magazine that looks really good, it was maybe Justin Kosman. I don't want to shit on other photographers. I don't know. Prolific BMX, behind the door or behind the scenes businessman and photographer and videographer. It's pretty cool. Like, I'm trying to remember my first taste of meeting Justin Kosman, and I think it was with Kevin Corrali. Hey there, BMX enthusiasts. Ready to upgrade your ride? Introducing Dance Comp, your ultimate online destination for all things BMX. That's the sound of a bike revving up. From top-of-the-line handlebars, do BMX bikes rev up? Thanks, ChatGPT. From top-of-the-line handlebars to durable tires, helmets, and chains. That's legit. Dance Comp is everything you need to take your biking experience to the next level. And for all the parents out there, rest assured knowing that Dance Comp isn't just about fun, it's also about fitness too. So whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, head over to dancecomp.com today and gear up for the ride of your life. Dance Comp, where quality meets performance on every pedal stroke. This episode is brought to you by Burn Slow. I never wear logos, but Burn Slow sent me some shirts like this one, my fruity shirt, and I highly recommend it. It's a conversation starter. It's a phenomenal shirt. But basically, what I was getting at is Burn Slow sent me shirts, and I literally won't take them off. Like I wear a Burn Slow shirt pretty much every day, or an all black one, or occasionally Unity. But we'll talk about them later. Yeah, Burn Slow is dope. Adam Roy, who does all the design, is a goat and very talented, and he's the originator of Cult. That's a fun fact. I don't know all the details on that, but it's an exciting thing. But anyway, it was founded by Aaron Ross, Chase Hawk, Devin Hutchins, Adam Roy, somebody else. I can't remember. It's okay. It's fine. It's just an ad. I want you guys to go to burnslow.co and support Burn Slow because they support your boy. Burnslow.co. See you later. Thank you, guys.
Oh, really?
I want to say that. Unless it was the GT thing. It could have been that.
I feel like it was the GT thing, but...
Yeah. What I want to say is like Kevin Corrali came to town with Justin Burns and they were cruising around working on something. It might have been Kyle Carlson with them, but they were working on some little web video and I took them to like the ledge across the sewer in downtown or near downtown. But then we went on to a GT bikes trip to Australia. My first sponsored BMX trip was involved you, which is so trippy to think about 16 years ago.
Man, did you win that trip? How did that
I lost the contest. So there was some online contest on Vital BMX, like the GT project, and everybody submitted their web videos. And it was a bunch of park riders from all over the country and so many good riders like flares, tail whips, the whole shebang. And I put together my little street edit with like a feeble and a hang five and some backwards manuals and 5 cabs. And like I lost. And then this Chuck, the guy that worked for GT, was going through all the losers just to see, and he was like, "Oh, this kid's got style. We should hook him up." I was the one loser that got brought up to the GT project team. And then fucking Australia is so crazy. Like I wonder behind the scenes, like why was that pitched? How did it happen? How did you get involved with GT? Was it a referral or like I know that it was a independent contractor type of gig. Like they needed a video guy and a photo guy for the trip. You were responsible for both. Do you remember the details of that?
Yeah. So it was a part of a retainer that I had with GT, Mongoose, and Schwinn, and it was through Mcgoo because Mcgoo had an advertising agency. I mean, he ran Snafu. But they also had an advertising agency that served Pacific Cycles at the time. And so he had hired me to shoot all their BMX stuff. And then also, I did like road bike and mountain bike catalogs for them. So that was either done before we did the Australia trip or that was kind of looped into it because I think however I had contracted it, it was like a certain number of days. And then they just like spent those days throughout the year, however they wanted to, without really giving me much heads up. So that's how I got involved with GT at the time. And I don't know why Australia, maybe it was just to really get people to enter, but it also could have been to like serve a distributor down there or something. Cause sometimes we would do a lot of international trips to kind of hype up these new developing regions and distributors.
Makes sense. Yeah.
I don't remember doing like an autograph session down there with any shops, but
if anybody would sign an autograph, it would have been Dilsey. But yeah, everybody else on the team was unknown. But yeah, I remember staying at Dave Dillaward's house, eating kangaroo.
Yeah.
I remember being too timid to tell you that I saw a spot I wanted to get a clip on, even though like that's the whole job. I learned later on like I should have said something, but yeah. I was like, "What? Justin won't take me to cool spots. We just go to these skate parks."
Remember I broke my hand like the second day there, right?
Yeah, I do remember that actually. Now I do. Yeah.
That sucked.
That sucks a lot.
Yeah, I was skating. I was following Dave, like skating a fisheye line, and I hit a piece of mulch on the skateboard, and I just full Pete Rose, camera flew out, slapped the ground with my left hand. I remember Dave walked back with like the P2 card that shot out of the camera, but he thought it was like my cell phone that split in half. And he's like, "Oh, hey, here's your cell phone. It's broken." And I was like, how did that thing, dude? The back hatch of the camera had to flip open and then shoot out. Anyway.
That's wild.
and I couldn't like, I thought my thumb was jammed, so I kept pulling on it, and it was like that, and I couldn't get it to pop back out, and I was just yanking on it. It didn't really hurt because it just felt like I had slapped something, the ground, because I did. And then then we went to the hospital, and I didn't want to get surgery there. We got surgery back home, but I just had to have it like wrapped up the whole time. And I was bummed because I really wanted to like surf while we were there. We wouldn't have had time to do it anyway, but it made the whole thing a pain in the ass.
I bet, dude. Especially at the beginning of a trip, like you need your hands to film. So just the rest of the time, you're just like filming with a fucked up hand. You're like, everything's long lens from here on out.
Yeah.
Do you remember your gear setup back then?
Yeah, I bet that was probably an HVX 200. I'm guessing it was that one that had the tape deck and the P2 card. Because I think I filmed that all on mini DV tapes.
HD mini DV?
It was
HD. I recall it being HD. Am I wrong?
So you could film on a memory card, or you could film to the mini DV side. You could do either one.
Could you? Does the mini DV translate HD footage?
No. It was just you were shooting through the same lens, so it kind of looked the same through your viewfinder, but the bit rate was quite a bit different, right? Because you're limited on the amount of tape. The memory cards were like $1,200, so I think the camera was only like $5,000. So I had the one it came with, and I hadn't bought anyway. I'm pretty sure I did mini DV tapes for that one. And then probably photo was like a Canon.
Look at that butte, dude.
Canon 5DX.
Wait, that's a DVX.
That's a DVX now.
HVX.
HVX 200.
200.
No. HVX 200. Yeah.
There it is.
Look at that thing.
Yeah, it's crazy how far cameras have come. I remember this being like, this was the shit. It was early in the HD revolution. That's for sure.
Gosh, you could film 60p continuously. And I remember Brian Purdy. Let's see. I went on a trip with Alan Cook and Adam Banton, and Brian Purdy had that camera, and he was filming everything in 60 frames, like slow. And I was like, oh, that's so sick. And I had just gotten my camera, my TRV 900 stolen on a DC trip.
Oof.
And then a bunch of photo gear, and the insurance money I used to buy that HVX camera that I took to Australia and everything. And that was a fun camera, man. That was a fun way to learn from a photo guy who didn't really know film or video at all. Like it was an easier way to learn. It had the servo zoom, and you could set it up tripod and then kind of like get your B-roll clips later. And that's really how I learned video and film from like an action sports photographer point of view.
I like that topic of you're a photographer and you're going to learn video versus being a videographer and then learning photo. What do you think as a photographer learning video? What like are some of the key lessons that you learned, like the difference between shooting a photo and a video in what you're thinking about as you're doing it?
Well, I think, shooting for magazines, you're always thinking that, okay, how am I going to light this? How am I going to use strobes? And kind of under the same constraints to light something for video, you really can't do it under the same budgetary constraints. You know what I mean? Like, like the flashes that we have put out a lot of light very quickly, but to have a continuous light system, you'd have to have like fucking like 18K and generators, and just it's not the same thing. So you start to rely on like composition more and kind of how everything moves throughout the frame. That's how I thought about it. And then try to tell a story, like focus on getting your action clip clean, and then, kind of reverse engineer the story backwards, through detail shots and B-roll and things like that. And
it's very photographer of you. The first thing that comes to your mind is lights. Like lighting is pretty much what makes a photo, can make or break a photo, and then composition, and then telling a story, which is pretty interesting. I think it's interesting, the jump from you're composing one piece of the action, like you're staying pointed here and you're going to time the photo so you can think about your composition. I want him to be in between that light pole on the negative space of the sky and that tree, versus video that I don't necessarily think about the composition so much. I think about like how which side of the 360 will look best, will the trick look best, but it's a
Right.
yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about, the difference. Which one, obviously I already know the answer, but which one do you prefer, photos or video?
Man, I like both for different reasons. I mean, there's, when I was doing both pretty I'd say equally, there were things that I was just like didn't want to shoot a photo of. I'd rather film it, I mean, I like photography just because lighting is more accessible to you with strobes and not having to bring on like an entire crew of people and just large equipment. I like that part of it, and it's a little bit more, selfishly satisfying. But film is pretty cool when you can integrate camera movement into your shots. That's something you really can't do in the same way with a still photo, like moving the camera, whether it be like a dolly or like a like a cable cam or like just
Skateboard fisheye.
skate fisheye. There's so many things that can visually like kind of push the viewer in this direction, and you can kind of control them because you're like creating this world in your camera where you're only showing them what you want them to see.
Yeah.
And with having the ability to move the camera, you're also like having them feel a certain way too, so I like
a lot more ways to like affect the viewer's experience than just a single photo.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Did you want to be a pro rider before you wanted to make something out of photos?
Yeah, I thought I could. Well, yeah, I mean, I wanted to race professionally, and I think when I was 21, I turned pro and started racing like single day pro races in Illinois and Wisconsin, and moved to California and was just getting my ass kicked by like 16-year-olds at the BMX tracks. I mean, it was just a whole nother world. And, I never did any quick math on what that was going to be like. Cause they didn't make much money. And, I mean, the top guys do, the top 10 guys always make good money, but like, I wasn't going to be that guy. I didn't have much of a plan, but I'd say I was actually probably a better like ramp rider than I was a racer, but I was so athletic at the time that, I liked racing a lot more, I guess, is just.
Yeah. I wonder why, because you got that competitive spirit. It's like a sport.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm super, super competitive, probably more with myself, but, I find myself getting like really, really competitive about stupid things that I know are just kind of like ingrained in I don't know, just
same here, dude.
Stuff, and it's as you get older, it starts to get a little bit embarrassing.
Yeah, why don't you relax, bro?
I'm like, dude, why am I getting so worked up about this right now? And yeah, anyway.
Dude, I'm the same way. We did a typing, like a words per minute contest at work like a year and a half ago, and I'm juiced up. I'm like watching the other. I'm like, I want to win. I just have that competitive shit, which is weird because in sports, that's a good thing. But then you come to the BMX world, and especially BMX freestyle, it's like, who are you competing with? Like you said, it's yourself,
Yeah. Yeah. I think you just like, I look at things and think that like, okay, I can do that. If this guy can do this, if this guy figured out how to do this, I just have to go. If I just go practice, I'm going to figure out how to do it, whether that means like, I just need to do more sprints or eat better or just do baby steps at the skate park. Like, how am I going to figure out how to do this thing? Well, I'll just do one and then I'll add another and then I'll, you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
I think that helped me a lot through just kind of moving out here on my own. But I think at a certain point you you look at yourself and be like, okay, wait, just because I think I can figure out how to do something doesn't mean that I should figure out how to do something. And if it doesn't like align with my goals, then I need to really think about like what, yeah, it's fun to learn things and to like beat people at competitions and like be better than people at things. But you know, where does it really leave you? You know, I mean, so that's something I've been trying to get better at. I think like really focusing on things that are meaningful to me and long term and
More aligned with your goals and like more intentional. Because yeah, the competitive spirit can like pull you in one direction. You're like, see, I fucking did it. I did that thing. It only took me a year, but I knew that I could. And you're like, wait, what did I do that for?
Yeah, I know. It was just like because I thought I could do it better than someone else, or
Yeah.
you know, like right now, I really want a studio. Like I want a big ass building where I can work out of, and I mean, the building that I would want to get would probably cost like $2 or $3 million, and I only rent studios like 20 times a year. That's only like I don't know $40,000 or 80. That like that's not even worth doing. You know what I'm saying? Like I couldn't even make my money back off. Like that's just a stupid thing. But in my head, I'm like, oh, you deserve a place that you should be able to work and have all. You know, I'm like, well, yeah, maybe if I lived in Iowa and I could get a building for like 120 grand, but like I don't know. That's the stuff that I feel like I have to like talk myself out of like on a daily basis of like, dude, you were just in Colorado for a week shooting road bikes. Like, why the fuck do you need a studio? And then also like, you know, on a separate note, like you're just going to be an Airbnb guy for the fucking studio, renting it out to other people. Like that's not you're not good at it. And that's what your life's going to turn into. Right. If
Yep.
it's just like having a property, you know, like you can't just have it and not rent it out. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just a stupid way to think about it. And that's just like my first natural inclination when I go to like these studios that I rent or clients rent. And I'm like, God, this place sucks. All their gear is dog shit. And I'm like, if I had a studio, it'd be so much better. And then, you know, I'm on like Crexy or like, yeah, LoopNet looking at some warehouse that is just like, I don't need to be involved with, but
I could do it better. So
I'm like, I could do it good, real good. One day I would be the best at it.
Yeah, I could see you doing the studio thing, but you're right. You'd be just an Airbnb host for other shooters, and you'd want out for sure. But also, who knows? Maybe you will get a studio and whatever. But yeah, I see what you're saying with that. It's almost like it's a combination of the ego and the competitiveness. Like your ego wants to own a studio, but realistically, you're like, I don't really need a studio, you know?
Yeah, and I've been down that road with gear and cameras where you just go through phases of like, oh, I need this thing because I'm going to use it a lot, and then you know use it like 2-3 times a year. And aside from it being convenient, it didn't pay for itself, which isn't necessarily like all it needs to do, but if it makes your life a lot easier, you know, that's kind of the stuff that I'm like buying nowadays for equipment.
Fuck yeah! What's the latest thing you bought that made your life a lot easier? This episode is brought to you by Unity Ride Shop. Unity Ride Shop is a local bike shop here in Phoenix off 43rd Avenue in Bethany Home, ran by and owned by a homie named Randy. And he opened the shop not because he wants to make a bunch of money, but because he's truly passionate about BMX, and he's done a lot for the community, just general community, not even the sponsored riders, just putting on community bike rides and constantly like hooking people up. I hung out at the shop one day and I saw like five different people come in and get a little bit of a hookup, and it's pretty cool. He genuinely cares. He's not in it for the money and stocks up on all the cool shit that you wish was local. So Unity is a place to go. Yeah, I'm stoked on them, stoked on what they're doing for the scene here in Phoenix, and hopefully do a lot more with them in the future. But they support the shit out of this show. So therefore, if you're in Arizona, you should probably support the shit out of Unity. I just got myself, what did I buy? I bought some Colt AK bars and Fiend. I'm going to do a bike check, but I got myself some bars and forks the other day, and they I had a good time doing it. Even played with some fingerboards and finger bikes. Those things are popping. But yeah, that's That's Unity, man. Go to unityrideshop.com or go visit them off 43rd Avenue in Bethany Home. Thanks, guys. Man, I just realized I'm incredibly close to the camera for all those other ones. It's mostly so that I can make sure I'm still in focus, but that means nothing. This show is brought to you by Spinelli's. Before I read this ChatGPT script, I just want to say Spinelli's has like a lot of my best memories kind of growing up here, and stoked that they're still around and kicking it in business off of Mill Avenue. It's a great bar, great. They host premieres, they support the local scene. They're incredible. But here's a ChatGPT ad. Hey, pizza lovers and BMX thrill seekers, have we got a slice of heaven for you? Introducing Spinelli's, the pizza shop and bar that's as wild as your sickest BMX tricks. Picture this, you just land that jaw-dropping tail whip, and what's waiting for you at the finish line? A piping hot slice of cheesy goodness and a frosty cold brew at Spinelli's. But wait, there's more. Our menu's stacked higher than your favorite half-pipe. From the classic pepperoni slammer to the veggie kickflip, we've got pies to satisfy even the gnarliest cravings. They even have, like, deep-fried Oreos. They're so fucked. And hey, when you're not tearing up the streets on your BMX, kick back with your crew, catch the latest BMX comps on the big screen, and swap stories of your most epic wipeouts. That's real. You can hang out and just watch BMX videos at the bar. So why settle for boring old pizza joints when you can hang with the BMX crowd at Spinelli's? Swing by today and let's turn up the heat, both on and off the bike. Spinelli's Pizza, where every slice is a trick worth savoring. Dude, bars. Yeah, but the difference is now it's not Spinelli'sPizzeria.com. It is Spinelli'sAZ.com. So, back to the show. Go get a slice. Equipment-wise, what do I need that I don't have?
You don't need this. I barely need it. I mean, I just bought 2 big high rollers. They're like 25-foot light stands. And, you know, they're like $800 each. It's not a big deal, but you know, yeah. I wasn't able to get a light into a second story window, you know? So if I want to get a light up and shining through a second story, I need a high. And I don't want to have to rent someone else's truck to do it, because a lot of times I just need like a high roller. Yeah, something like that.
High rollers. I've never heard of a high roller before, but I'm learning. That's cool.
Yeah. So it's usually me buying stuff for a job I have. Yeah. And that I don't need like to rent a full grip truck of things. And then of course, you know, I've amassed like a garage and a grip truck on my own.
Hell
but
yeah.
It does make things easier when I know that I don't have to like go rent something and then drop it off, and I know it's maintained. I mean, I've rented enough crap to know that like some people don't take care of their stuff, and you know, they're like, oh yeah, you can't use it in RGB mode, you know. I'm like, oh great, you know.
Yeah, kind of stuff. Thanks, you broke it, huh? You have a truck for gear? You have a grip truck?
Yeah.
What is a grip truck? You mean a literal truck?
It's a Transit 150 van, so it's just like a Transit cargo van. Looks like a Sprinter. I got the short one, just no windows.
Sick.
You know, I've got like 6.
That's gangster. I want one.
Yeah, I've got like the medium roof one, so I have like 3. I can fit 3 carts in there, and like a 12 C-stand cart. You know, camera and lights. So we just kind of roll everything on and off. But I haven't, like, it's not built out on the inside. It just has places for like all the stands on the side, so everything can come out and it can be completely empty if I need it to be.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just turned into like
a
camera
level
bag.
Doing shit.
It's just a giant camera bag.
Yeah. It's kind of funny. I remember not having any gear and being like, oh, I can't wait to have all the gear. But then you get gear and it's like, they're just tools to do this thing. You got to go do the thing, which is, you know, a cool feeling. Let's talk about what you're doing right now. I think I've always kind of looked up to you in the like professional realm of photo and video, and how I just remember it always felt like Justin Kosman has like a cool job going on and he's getting paid pretty good. And it's always been kind of just like, Kosman's doing his thing. I remember you gave me advice once where you were like explaining how to think about gear, like get something that you want, save up till you get it, and then on to the next thing and go and work, blah, blah, blah. Work until you get the next thing, and then work until you get the next thing, which is good advice. I didn't do it, but it was good advice.
Yeah, I don't do that either. Yeah. I think when I see guys do it the best, they rotate cameras like every single year, and So they'll use it and then they'll sell it before it really depreciates a whole lot. And, you know, when you do the math, it's like they basically, you know, got a camera for, you know, 20% of the cost, and then they just kind of keep rolling it. I like to keep stuff a lot longer. I don't know. That's not what you asked, but I'll tell you.
No, it is kind of. It was the end of the question for sure.
This is what happened, man. I wanted to move to California and work for Ride Magazine, and they didn't have any, like, they didn't want to hire me for whatever reason.
Who was your contact at Ride?
It was like, well, between Transworld and Ride, it was like Keith Mulligan and Jeff Z and Kevin McAvoy and Mark Losey. I mean, those are the guys that were working for the magazine, and they had like a full staff. And so when I showed up in California, I had to figure out a way. And that was a full-time job for them. So like that was the only thing they had to do, right? Like they had, you know, they were getting taxes taken out, they had health insurance and all that shit. So those guys were all freelancing, but like I didn't have a choice. I had to figure out how to make shit happen, and not on like a month-to-month basis. Like I had to figure out a way to make stuff happen like on a way bigger scale, because it was so much more infrequent. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So in hindsight, and I try to remember this a lot because I think it's important to kind of like put this kind of perspective on what you're thinking about, you know, currently in all the things we do. But like, you know, what I thought was important back then was like not important. And I'm so glad I didn't get a job there. Nothing against those guys, but I would have just not taken other opportunities because they wouldn't have existed because I wasn't looking for them. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So
you accidentally became like an entrepreneur in a sense.
Yeah, I would, yeah. I mean, really just like a business owner. I think that word entrepreneur is like reserved for people who like really create a business that is, that you can sell.
I can see that. Okay.
People say that, people throw that word around a lot, and I treat it with a little bit more, I hold it in high regard. Let's just say that, because I think that would be something, not only do I think it's really hard, it's really hard to do, but, you know, I like to think that, you know, I'm just a small business owner, you know what I mean? I mean, but yeah, man, you know, when we were talking about Banquet earlier, you know, I was doing still photography, and as video kind of emerged, I had these opportunities to work for these like startup action sports startup companies like Banquet, and then later on Network A. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to like, and those were like side gigs for me that like work wise were way less work than like my Vans and Red Bull projects. But since it was like out of the industry money, like, you know, those deals were huge. Like those were like $80,000-$90,000 side gigs for me.
That's amazing.
Managing content, weekly content. And I bought and licensed content from filmers and everything. And I did have a weekly publishing schedule. I mean, I was essentially,
You bought some shit from me, dude. Yeah. Network A, baby. Go on.
Yeah, so that stuff would just, you know, and the guys that worked in the magazine, they never like, either they couldn't do that or they weren't interested in it, or they, those opportunities just didn't come across their desk because it was kind of like a competitor, right? Because those guys have web properties themselves. So, yeah, I was just real fortunate to kind of look at things through like a different perspective. And also it taught me to be like really frugal, to be perfectly honest, because, you know, you think you're like planning all these things and like you're so smart, but really, you know, these opportunities were kind of coming out of nowhere. And so it made me even more, I guess, scared that it could all go away. You know, when opportunities would come my way, no fault of my own, and I'd be like, oh, okay, this is great, but I probably shouldn't spend this money on something stupid because who knows if this shit's going to come back. But, you know, I was able to save up for a house, you know.
It's huge. It's amazing.
Yeah, you know, I haven't had any debt my whole professional career. I've always bought all my vehicles cash. Like, I paid off my first condo in like 7 years. Then we bought another house out in Carlsbad and paid that off in a year. Like, I don't leverage anything, and I don't know. That's like the best way to do it, but that's the way that like helps me sleep at night. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's probably the least anxiety ridden way to go. No.
Yeah. And like my wife, she quit her like last summer. She quit her job and because she didn't like it, and like we don't have any bills. Like we have property taxes, and we basically set ourselves up to be able to take on work that we wanted to do, and we wanted to be able to turn away work that we didn't like. And
Fuck yeah, dude. Good for
and
you.
that's like maybe a scarcity mindset, but like, dude, she hasn't worked in like 10 months, and it hasn't really affected us at all. And she started freelancing, and she's like working for like a lab in Harvard, like consulting on a bunch of like drugs that they're developing, and she fucking loves it. She gets to work on all this cool shit that
She's stoked to work on.
she's
That's
stoked
amazing.
to work on, and
Yeah.
not stuck in one place. And so
What does she do, by the way?
she's like a neuroscientist, so she develops like drugs for, or not, yeah, I mean they're drugs, but they're like therapies for Parkinson's and ALS and Alzheimer's. And
Fuck yes.
yeah, she's a doctor, and so it's called antisense oligonucleotides. So it goes into the RNA, and it like stops a protein. So if you have a disease that's causes a protein to like mutate and replicate, she'll like find that thing and then design a drug that goes in there and like latches onto that one little protein and stops it from like
Wild.
It's
So sick.
Yeah, and they're like there's like a lot of tolerability issues with all those different things. So as simple as that sounds, it's like it's kind of a crapshoot doing it. It's like a real kind of niche part of science, but it's fun. It's fun hearing her talk about that stuff, and I get to like eavesdrop on her conference calls and things like that.
Yeah, that's got to be fulfilling as shit, dude. That's amazing. How did you meet her? She sounds out of your league.
She's way out of my league. And you know what? It's a good thing you brought this up, because we met on Bumble, and
hell yeah,
I had been dating within my like pool of coworkers, essentially. Like I'm not in school. How am I also going to meet people, right? I'm meeting them at like companies in marketing departments, and I just kind of kept dating, having relationships with like the same people over and over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so she worked in Carlsbad, and she would drive kind of past my house all the time, and so I just kept that Bumble radius real short. Yeah, and we met up for breakfast, and that was like 7 years ago.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
I'd say this. I would highly recommend dating someone that does something completely different than what you do, at least once or twice, because while I think the things in common kind of get you into a relationship like easier, it is really fulfilling, like learning something totally different,
I bet. Yeah.
not having the same kind of like complaints and kind of issues with your same industry. That's kind of what has been interesting for me. But she's from
interesting.
Yeah, she's from Michigan. She went to school in Wisconsin, and so like we grew up in the Midwest, so that's, I think, something that we have in common a little bit. So
you guys are both out there living that California dream now, dude.
Yeah.
So what was the first check that you got from BMX? Like your first paid gig that you did?
I bet I got paid from Standard, but I got paid from Rick Moliterno at one point. I think I shot some photos for like of him doing like a nose pick tail whip on a street spine, and they used it in like a little trifold pamphlet, that's for like Interbike or like as a mailer or something. Sick. I bet I convinced him to pay me for that, which is probably $200, which is that's pretty good for Rick Moliterno.
I'd say that's not nothing in BMX, especially back then.
That was probably 2002 maybe before I moved out here. Yeah.
It's crazy you were making money in BMX before I even knew what jerking off was. That
was Well, what was your first check in BMX? 'Cause
I think it was. I'm trying to like the order of operations is a little bit different. I think the first thing was selling a web video to somebody. Um, it was either ESPN Brian Tunney, could have been like an older video of Drew where like a deck park montage that I did. I think deck park montage is on Network A. So it could have been either Network A, ESPN, or like a Sabrosa or one of those. I don't know which came first, but it was a web video. It was like go to the skate park. I kind of had it down pat. I was working at Jimmy John's. I would think about writing and filming all day while I'm working, and then I would go to the skate park with and bring the local riders and film a web video. I'd go home that same night, edit it together, and then send it to Tunney, send it to you, send it to whoever, and whoever would buy it. Like ESPN was giving me 300, 350, and then Network A was like 200 if I remember, 250 or something. And Sabrosa one-off things here and there were around that same ballpark. But that was so much money. For, like thinking in terms of Jimmy John's, like driving and delivering enough sandwiches to make $200 is a good amount of driving for delivering sandwiches. So I was stoked, man.
I think I went to your video premiere of God, what's the name of that video?
Mediocre at Best.
Mediocre at Best. Yeah, it was at like a church or something.
Yeah, it definitely looks like a church. It's the Phoenix Center for the Arts, and it has like columns outside, and can't wait to go there again. It's the 10-year anniversary is this year, and I decided we're gonna premiere Mediocre at Best 2 on that same day, December 13th.
Oh damn, that's cool. I think I was in town with like maybe Kaczynski or something. I don't know. I think I was.
That sounds right, because I remember hearing, wait, Brian Kaczynski was at my premiere, dude? No fucking way. That's cool, man. And those are a money losing adventure nowadays, like, or not even nowadays. Back then, like, made total of $2,000 maybe off of that video, and that was with Ronnie Bonner's help getting it distributed and everything. But it's just my dad was like, wait, how long did you work on this?
Right.
And how much did you make? Like,
it was part-time, like when you're doing it, like you would have been kind of spending your time the same way, It's like you would have been filming your friends, or at least riding with your friends for the most part, doing all the same stuff. So it's
magical, man.
Yeah, if it didn't feel like a job, that's pretty special,
Truly. Same with like when I was working for Sabrosa, for the most part, did not feel like a job, especially on a trip. Now, like it's so ingrained in me to be a shooter, like a filmer or shoot photos, that even when I'm like attending like a fun event, I'm still just sitting there like, this will make a good clip for this person, like at a yoga wine tasting, I'm like recording the lady's 15-minute speech about wine, and then after effect, I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, I don't need to record all this,
Dude, I do the same thing where we go to some nice restaurant and like I'm doing like a stupid, like a slow-mo pan over the food with the lights all backlit, and get them on the gram, and they're like, oh, our customers are artists too. Oh, man.
There's a lot of opportunity these days. And now, like when I started, not everybody had a phone in their pocket. And now everybody has a full-blown 4K camera in their pockets, which is a huge difference compared to back then. Like having a mini DV camera was actually still a big deal in 2006, 2007. But now it's not.
You were like the one guy in town.
I was the filmer, which kind of seems like a dying breed. I don't hear I feel like there used to be more dedicated filmers for crews. Now it kind of, you don't hear as much. They might be out there. I just don't know about them.
I bet they're out there. I bet you and I are just so out of touch that we don't really have we don't know those people.
We're old, brother. We're old. How old are you actually?
43.
Damn.
I know. The guy that ran the BMX track back home in Illinois, he just texted me last night, and it was like a photo of a newspaper, and it was like a photo of me doing like a real boned out gate start, and it was like, Justin Kosman wins state championship 13 beginner, and I was like, that was 30 years ago.
Yeah, 1993.
I was like, oh man, it was so crazy.
Super crazy. Time just kind of fucking flies by.
Yeah, it
You
does
know what
fly
I
by.
heard that makes a lot of sense to me is it's like time is the same, but it's your perception of the fraction of your life that changes. So like when you're 5 years old, 1 year is like a fifth of your life versus now you're, 50
Mm,
years old, 5 years is a much smaller percentage. So it just seems like it goes by faster. And
dude,
that clicked in my head. I was like, oh shit. Yeah. As you get older, time goes faster.
I've never heard that before. I wonder how that translates into how you're perceiving things. If it's just like, yeah,
Well,
yeah,
because but since it's a smaller percentage of your life, it seems like it's going by faster, but it's not. Is that what you're talking about? The
yeah. I
perception
mean,
of
I,
time?
I understand the statement. I just wonder how it translates into like your actual perception of things. Whether it's like, I wonder if it's because the older we get, we tend to fall into patterns of like more monotonous things and less things are unique.
Yeah.
I wonder if the fewer unique things um, make it feel like it just flies by, right? Because we're like pattern recognizing creatures.
Yep.
So I wonder if that, like as you said, as you're growing up, it's a percentage of your life, but also those experiences are the
New.
majority of like new, right? So
Yeah.
you're like those are more significant deposits in your kind of mental library.
Yeah. You remember things because they're unique and different, but then the more shit or the less shit that's unique and different, you're like, it doesn't trigger the same response.
Yeah.
But when you sit back and think about time, you start to really appreciate little moments. Like since I've been through a special moment before, I kind of can see that I'm in a special moment now. Like it's hard to see that you're in the good old days until they're over, but
Yeah.
try and think like these are the good old days. Like right now, sometimes I get bummed I'm not whatever doing more, but I think I'll look back on this chapter, like living here, doing this podcast, fucking my life right now, and be like, those were the days,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I like trying to simplify some things that I try to like in my head. I think make things like way too complex, and like simplifying things isn't easy by any means. But I think that can sometimes be the key to like not getting caught up in like what you think is going to make you happy. You know,
Give me an
um,
example. What are you talking about simplifying things?
mm. like this weekend we didn't do anything. Like I edited photos because I had a lot to do, but um like I got home on Friday in the middle of the day and had to like client calls, and then I was like, we didn't mountain bike this weekend, we didn't like clean the house, we didn't I didn't like clean my truck or my cameras or anything, and like it's not gonna matter, you know what I mean? Like I didn't have to put together like a new um post for LinkedIn, or like it was I'm just trying to be more comfortable like not doing things for some reason that I think is just like arbitrary, right? Like I'm not saying any of that stuff is meaningless, but I'm saying like doing it without like a purpose or a goal
Yeah.
and can kind of get you in like what can feel like a rat race, especially when I'm not employed anywhere full time. So I can kind of feel like I have to do every single piece of my business myself at all times, and it can kind of feel like analysis paralysis. So I like to, just like not do anything and not feel bad about it sometimes. And then sometimes, I'll work for like 2 or 3 weeks straight, but I think just feeling like you have to work every day. And I'll be the first to admit, I worked every single day for like 15 years, like including weekends and weekdays. So that is certainly how you can force getting ahead and kind of force appreciation in your business or in your career. But at a certain point, you know,
You got to
you
learn
want,
to stop and smell the fucking do nothing
yeah,
roses,
yeah,
which is
yes,
easier said than done for a lot of people. A lot of people are stuck in go mode, like, and they feel just like overwhelming guilt if they just have a chill day. It's like, I'm a piece of shit. Why am I just sitting around not doing anything?
I mean, dude, you spend all this time with like Pace and his partner. Like, you probably feel like you aren't doing shit. I would too.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
mean, and
It's
you're probably working a lot,
wild.
but like,
I'm working a fuck ton and it's nothing. I feel like, I'm not doing shit.
Dude, it's tough. It's tough to like always compare yourself to other people, you know.
Big tip.
But I also think that it's like super valuable to be around people that are firing at like a way higher level than you are, because there's no other way you're gonna like get that perspective and really realize like what working your ass off is like. And people, oh, you know, I did like a 16-hour day. It's like, no, you felt like you did a 16-hour day. Like I know people that do 16-hour days and they do it all the fucking time, and they answer calls during dinner. You know what I mean? They like fucking answer texts in the middle of the night. Like I know people like that, and that's why they're, you know, years and years ahead of their peer group.
Yeah.
Which isn't the be all end all, but you know, I think it's a good balance to like be around people like that, because it truly is, you know, you become the average of the 5 people you're around most. And I think a way to kind of like hack that is, you know, spending your time listening to like podcasts and thought leaders in areas that you're really interested in, you know.
Yeah.
We can kind of like democratize knowledge and motivation and lessons that way. But it's also nice to like not be tied down to that shit, you know, and not feel like you've created like, you know, you don't want to create a situation where you're like a slave to your work, you know?
Yeah. I see that in, you know, Pace and Jamil, for example, like they have, you know, the Pace single-handedly is like responsible for, I think, something over like 200 people's salaries. So like the like pressure to do it is just constantly there, and it's like a treadmill that doesn't stop, and you can like take a day and fucking jump off for a second, but then you got to jump right back in. And another thing I thought about what you're saying, all that, is just like their phones, like you're talking about texts and like you and I don't know, I don't want to include you in it, but I maybe will sometimes have like 1 or 2 texts that I need to get back to. These guys, like you scroll up and it's just all that blue unread dot, and it's like, Jesus, dude, that's a lot. But I've seen what they do, and I can take it from my eyes and apply it into like my worlds, like the way that they would go and figure out a sponsor for something. I kind of applied that and did sponsors for my podcast, but like the way they collaborate with people, I could see that happening in my world too. And there's a lot of good lessons that I think apply universally. If you hang around a high performer in a certain industry, you can become that high performer in another industry if you want to. I also see it and I'm like, I don't want to design my life to be work from, bro, Pace will wake up at like 3:00, do emails until like, you know, 6 or 7, and then he's off for the day, and he literally is go until 9 p.m., 10 p.m., and finally kind of maybe shuts it off. But it's like, dude, sheesh, don't want that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I consider you a high performer, but tell me about your situation right now. What does your business look like right now?
Right now, I would say I'm 80% commercial photography and 20% commercial video production. I think that was maybe as high as 50-50 back in the day. But now it's kind of swung back to still photography.
Yeah, because videos became so oversaturated that photos became special again. Is that why you think? Are you talking in general or just in your life?
Oh, just in my life. I mean,
okay.
Like I went through a phase where everybody wanted to do like a you know, branded doc about their product. You know, and they wanted to spend like, you know, like 10 grand making like a 4-minute video that was like super emotional, talking about their fucking heart rate monitor or something.
Yeah.
Which those are fun to shoot, you know. But I think at the pace at which brands feel like they need to distribute content, that they just don't think that is an ROI they want to live with. You know, I think they would rather put out more frequency and less quality, you know, or have like higher access and less quality. And those words I think maybe can be used interchangeably, but I would say it's like a higher quality level of storytelling, you know, like those branded docs. Just, I don't know. So anyway, I'm mostly working with like sports brands and a few corporate brands down here in San Diego.
Are Are you prospecting for new clients yourself, or has everything kind of just been word of mouth?
Dude, it's all been referral. And it's funny you mentioned
Yeah.
that. I emailed you that link to my portfolio I just put
Yeah.
together. I'd never put together like a portfolio deck or anything. And I'm going to start reaching out to some agencies and some art buyers. And this was a fun thing to throw together because it really gave me a true look at the type of stuff I put together.
You've done some incredible stuff, man. I loved scrolling through it earlier.
So much of it is sports and motion and action, and that's really where I've just spent most of my time. So, the cameras have changed throughout the years, but it's been fun putting all this stuff together. And it was also like a bit of a confidence booster, to be honest, because
fuck yeah, you're like, I've done some shit.
you're like, man, it was, dude, I'll tell you what it was like. It's like when I was first started training for like triathlons when I was in high school and college, I was like always scared of race day, but I kept a journal of all my workouts and stuff. And I would like read through it the couple days before and like read through all the miles I swam and ran and cycled and everything. And it was like, dude, tomorrow you're only running like 5 miles. You're only, biking like 20 miles. Like you ran like, 1,000 miles this summer or something,
Fuck
it wasn't that much, but you get what I'm saying,
I
right?
know exactly what you're saying.
A little dose of perspective.
Yeah, because you take it for granted that you've been doing all this work, but then you remind yourself, oh yeah, I'm prepared. I've done this work, and these photos are amazing. This is top notch, world class photography, my dude.
Yeah, it was. I kept.
This was my favorite earlier when I was looking
dude,
through it.
that
I
is
was like, this is sick.
dude. That one at DAC is so. I think I have enough photos of DAC to do like a DAC art show maybe.
Fuck
But
yeah, do a little DAC like magazine or a book or something too.
well, we did a book.
You did a
for,
DAC book?
Yeah. Well, it was like a zine. It was a zine for one of his shoes, but just through all the trips and everything, I was like, if I ever had to do that, if I ever had to like re-enter the BMX culture in a selfish way, I'm like, oh yeah, I could put together like a DAC kind of a photo show or like a little zine or something.
Fuck yeah.
He was hands down the best dude to work with. Mostly because I got to work with him so much, and we had a lot of mutual respect for kind of what each person did and treated it like it was a real deal
Fuck yeah.
job. So
yeah, he gets it, man. There's something about Dakota that's really special. Just talking to him, you can tell, like, oh, this fucking guy, he's a consummate professional.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was impressed with these studio ones too. Like the editing of this. That's not practical, right?
No.
You edited that. That's
impressive
editing.
That was for McLaren in January. That was kind of random. I got to go to Indianapolis and shoot their IndyCar guys.
Hell
like
yeah.
portraits. That's all in camera. I mean, that's just kind of, that doesn't look like a lot, but that's like 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like 6 or 7 lights.
Oh wow.
Kind of making that background fade, and then he's got like a yellow light on his face, and then kind of like an orange light on his hair, and there's.
It's the little things. Like a pro photographer will look at this and be like, "Holy shit!" And then a regular person would be like, "Oh, that's cool. They have them in front of a yellow.
It's like, orange. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. It's orange. Good job."
That's one thing that I'm not starting to realize it, but I'm realizing how there's no way around it. Kind of working at those higher levels of lighting and production, it's like you can get to 80% pretty quickly, but getting from like 80% quality to like a feature film is like all these really, really small differences that no one wants to take. Like no one wants to make those costs at like a low level, but people working at these like 2% kind of better intervals across all levels is what takes it to like a feature level film.
I love that. That's very well said. I think,
and there's no way around it. But like you can do things like, okay, like instead of paying talent like $500, like let's get a fucking dope model. Let's pay like $3,000 for a model and get some Vogue level talent in front of the camera, you know, like that could really change your shoot, right? Because if you don't have anywhere else to make it up, like if you can't just on a Saturday be like, I'm gonna be better at lighting today, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, okay, well, how can I step it up? It's like, well, get out your checkbook. You know, you can put someone really, really beautiful in front of the camera, and that can kind of take your production to a whole nother level because they're bringing their professionalism with them. You know, like if you don't know how to tell them to pose like they do, because they've been on more sets than you'll ever be on.
Exactly.
You know?
It's those tiny incremental things that take you from, because you're right, it is easy to get proficient enough to be like 80%, but that next 20% is going to feel like 400%. And it's all so subtle. It is like only seen by a few. Like you could look at something on Netflix and really dissect it and be like, oh fuck, they had this there and this there, you know?
Yeah.
It's a trip.
That there was some Netflix sports series. It was one with like Malice at the Palace. I don't know if you watched any of those, but with the hockey league from Connecticut too. Anyway, they had this intro, and it's like they had a freaking techno crane moving like an 18K because all the shadows just like parallax across this basketball court, and it would play every time the series would start, and I would just like play it over and over. And it was just like, oh, that intro is so crazy how they would do it. I'm like, this might be it. Yeah, but they probably don't have the series. Yeah, so yeah, Untold. Yeah, look up Untold intro. Untold Netflix intro maybe. But yeah. Watch.
Tell me, can you see it still?
You see that right there. You see that? See how the shadows are moving?
Yeah.
Like, dude, they're moving a massive light on a freaking like an enormous techno crane to move it that fast to get those like that's the stuff that gets me like pumped because I'll do something like this on a tabletop set with like a golf club. So I know what they're doing, but like they're doing it
on such a big scale. It's like, whoa.
So that's the stuff that I'm like really, really excited about in this kind of part of my career is like really precise lighting and, sculpting light and shaping light. That's the stuff that, no matter what job I'm working on, those are the things that kind of like make me really motivated each day. And like, like stuff I want to try out. Oh, I want to try this at this shoot with this light and this modifier and try to cut it in certain ways. And,
fuck yeah. And it keeps you, it's like, the reason why people love playing golf is it's unperfectible. And so the same thing with lighting and like you'll never get it perfect, but you can keep trying and getting closer. And then when you do nail it on one, you're like, you keep going,
Yeah. Yeah. It's addicting. Yeah. I still don't know why people play golf, man. I've shot golf for like 8 years and dude, every time we're out on a course and someone like catches up to us and they have to pass us, I'm just like, dude, this fucking sucks. Like now they pass us and then we got to wait for them. And it's like, if you could just have the whole golf course to yourself, like that would be so rad. And I think that's what like shooting street was like back in the day, where it's just like, you just had everything to yourself, of course, like, people walking through your spot or something, but
there's no other bikers trying to come get a trick at the same spot.
We want to shoot on this next,
can we play through?
It's like, no, you can't crank arm this right now while we're like setting, I think like what you and I got to do like really spoiled me in a lot of different ways. Like first of all, like working with all these world-class riders, you had like unlimited access to them, like you would get in the car and go drive with these guys and go shoot, for weekends or weeks on end. And now fast forward like 20 years, I get like a celebrity talent for like 2 hours, maybe, or if we have them all day for some reason, that's like one of his 2 days that he owes that client for like the whole year. So everything we're doing is like mapped out to like 3 and 4 minute intervals. Like I've done golf shoots where we are just like, we have 3 professionals. They're changing out head to toe looks every 7 minutes. They're rotating in and out. We're shooting them on a tee box. Like it's just like hammering through it, like no creativity. And that's not the point of it, but it's like I would never be like jumping in the car with, Ricky Fowler to go out to like White Sands National Park to like shoot him, hitting a ball in the desert. Like people have shot that type of shit before, but it's like not only do those guys not have that amount of time because they are dedicated to all their tour responsibilities, but it's just like a whole nother level of talent and endorsements and access,
But and the more serious and the more like money riding on something, the more planned out it's got to be. What part of, like, when you say something like we had our shit planned out every 3 to 4 minutes with the golfers, for example, are you doing the planning and then running the shoot? Like, what role are you playing on that gig?
No,
just a photographer?
Yeah, so like I was hired by the client, by the apparel company, and then I hire a producer to manage the logistics of it.
Nice.
So the producer, I worked with the producer before, like I pay him out of my budget. I mean, that's just how, like sometimes the producer gets the budget and then they handle everything. Like in this case, like I got the budget and then I paid the producer. I paid all the lighting people. I paid for the Digitech and everything. But like, I think I had him on for like 3 days. He worked like 3 days before the shoot, not chronologically up to the shoot, but like 3, basically like 3 8-hour days of work dealing with the client and the schedule. And, oh, when do we get this guy? What time? Okay. From 8 a.m. to this is that. And then when we swap in this other lady and we shoot that, and, he's got it all like written out. Like this is the wardrobe for this guy. And then this is a guy. And, he just coordinates all the times and, he basically,
it's so nice when somebody else does it.
Yeah, it is nice. And you have to trust that, like, he'd done all those shoots before. So I knew it was like no problem, but like you get spoiled when you have some shoots that go like as you think they're going to go. Because those are easy, right? Because that's what you plan to do. But it's when someone's late or, you just have like a rain delay or something, and then your whole day gets all fucked up, and you can't really plan in advance for when your day is going to get fucked up, because that's really determines like, okay, how are you going to rearrange the day, right? Then you have to look at your shot list and be like, okay, we just lost like an hour of shooting, and then we went into lunch, so okay, what are we going to cut? What are we going to move forward? And then if all your people are on like 10-hour days, then you have to decide like, okay, well, it's that saying like, do you want to care less or do you want to pay more, right? Because if you start going into overtime, you have to get out the calculator and like figure out, what's your burn rate per hour for everybody. Like I'm on like a full day. My day doesn't change, but for like the grip and electric guys and drivers and hair and makeup, like, anyway, that it can start adding up pretty fast. And so that's like the producer who's just like, got to be like, okay, client's like, well, we really need to shoot it. And we're like, okay, well, it's going to be like another hour and a half. We have to, first of all, ask the team if they can stay extra. And you have like another like $12,000 to pay all these people out, because OT start getting into time and a half. And then if it's double OT, it's like, it gets going pretty quick. And,
so many like expensive moving parts that you have to keep in mind. People don't think about how much goes into behind the scenes. Like you look at a photo of a golfer on a tee box, but you don't think about all of that shit that had to happen in order for that to come to reality. It's super wild.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice that we get to work. I usually do my rate in like a 10-hour day, because then it's really easy to break down into like an hourly rate.
What's your day rate? I want to hire you to come shoot photos of me biking. What's your day rate?
It depends on the job. If I'm getting my gear on.
All right. How much do I have to save up? $20,000? Just kidding, for a day. Imagine. Fuck. My day rate is $20,000 and you have to provide the gear. I'm that good, baby.
That's not what I'm getting, but that's not too far off, like like 10 grand a day for some commercial DPs and photographers plus gear plus prep days. Like that's pretty reasonable, you know, like if
Oh
you're,
shit. Yeah.
yeah, like my assistant, he's been on some shoots with a guy who's, you know, my age, and yeah, they did like an 8-day shoot over in Europe, and it was like he was making like 10 a day plus he probably got some wrap days to deal with post and everything for post production. So yeah,
It's a good reminder because I joke about it, but the money's out there. Like it's an abundant world, the opposite of a scarcity mindset.
yeah.
I'm curious this will be a fun one if you answer it. What is the most amount of money you've charged ever? And this is including crazy shoots like that require a budget that you're not keeping all of. But what's the biggest proposal you've given somebody?
Like I'd say like 85 grand. And
that's pretty big.
Yeah, and then I think so that would have been like a project where I had post production on it too. That's kind of like that's like the one that I can catch the most profit on, because if it's video and I get some prep and pre-production days, and then I get to shoot, and then I get my gear on, and then if I get all the post production too, yeah, you can, like, I could probably walk away with half of that, you know, maybe a little bit more than half. It depends on if they need it for like broadcast, because I have like a broadcast guy that finishes like all my color and sound. But
interesting.
Yeah.
So you have somebody that you hire to like make it from what you created and touch it up a little bit so that it's ready to go on TVs, broadcast?
Yeah. And a lot of that's just like sound, like technical sound. I don't think it's as hard to do now, but like your sound has to be within like certain levels and has to be normalized in certain ways. And then like we never did anything for surround sound specifically, but still you want to like map your sounds sometimes to left and right for certain effects.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, I mean, you can get out the scopes and just make sure your colors are within like legal limits. And then he has like some better monitors that are like more frequently calibrated than a lot of mine are too. So he can like check them against like what broadcast standard colors are. But yeah, I mean,
there's that 80-20 again. So like the audio, you can get proficient, and then it's this guy's job to do that 0.5%, you know?
Yeah. And you know what? I get to sit in on those color and sound sessions, and dude, I learned so much. Like I would say the most, so when we finished Illustrated, that Vans BMX film, I think there were like 13 or 14 different parts. Vans had a budget for me to take it to like a broadcast color guy, and I got to sit in with him for like 10 days straight and watch him like color and mix all the video parts that I had edited in Premiere. And dude, I learned so much. And that dude is still like one of my mentors, man. Jacek Krapinski. Yeah, he's such a cool guy. Quite a bit older than me, but dude, he just was teaching me stuff the whole time. It was like I was in junior college, like just all this stuff. And it was, yeah, Calvin got to meet him too. Of course, you pull up Ty's part. I didn't film like hardly any of Ty's part. Because he was like so hard to work with that he only let Calvin work with him.
That's it, Calvin. Of course, I pull up Ty's part. Well, let's just rewatch Ty's banger. Sheesh. Ty's a monster. Dude. Wait, is this it? What does he do? He threes this? Yeah.
Yeah.
He is
so
a powerhouse. Let's see. Pick a part.
Just do the illustrated intro. Just do
okay.
Or Kevin Peraza illustrated bonus section is a good one too.
Jason Watts is the first part, but is this the intro?
I don't know.
This is the intro to his part.
Is on. I think this is Jason's part.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know about. Okay, maybe that's a trailer.
So
we're just gonna watch what's Kevin Peraza, AZ legend.
Do you you know about like that 80-20 saying, like, you know, 20% of your or 80% of your profit comes with like 20% of your work, like
yes.
Okay. Have you heard Scott Galloway talk at all?
No, maybe.
Uh, he just had a book come out, Algebra of Wealth. He's pretty funny. Uh, he's like a business professor at NYU Stern. He lives over in Europe. He's just like a private equity guy. Um, anyway, he has he has a version of the 80-20 that's pretty funny. He's like he says it's like 5% of your employees do 120% 120% of the work, and try to keep the other 95% of people from fucking it all up. Like it's pretty aggressive as to how he describes it, but sometimes it feels that way, man. Like at the end of the year when I look at a lot of the projects I did, or like just input versus output, you're just like, man, so much of it came from like one client or one relationship or just one really specific thing, and sometimes it's like stuff that I had no control over. It was just like some random thing that fell in my lap. Anyway,
That's real though. It's amazing how much of an impact one client can have over the rest of the 9, but it's not the same. You have to have all of them and then just not fuck up the important one.
Yeah.
And I talking earlier about we should talk about Kevin Praza while it's going, but earlier talking about and now it's gone. I thought of Kevin Praza. I was like, okay, fuck whatever I was saying. What a legend KP is. What was it like? What was it like hanging out with him and filming him for this?
God, he was so good at like so many things, and I think some guys on the team at the time like they didn't really like him going on trips because he could ride so many things.
Yeah, this fucking guy's gonna do all the clips.
He'd be like, do everything, and like, dude, look at him riding. Look at all this shit. He's just so good.
I wouldn't want him on my trip either. He's too good.
But he could do. Stay home. He could do everything, man. It was like, and his family was so cool, and like, him and his dad have stayed at my old house, and like his brothers are cool guys, and like their family is just very
incredible,
very loving family, and like very traditional in a lot of ways. And man, he was just, I feel, dude, look at all this stuff. I feel so privileged that I was able to get to like film him during this time. Like, yeah, like you know what, I feel bad that he didn't get to do all this stuff like 10 years before, because I feel like this is going to be a hot take, but man, look at this stuff. Like he would have been like a Van Homan, what I mean? Like maybe not as Dead Man, but like, dude, he's so good. So good.
I think, and yeah, I see what you're saying. I think he does get his flowers. Like he is known as one of the best in the world right now. But I think like you're right. He could have been like a Van Homan, which is like a generational. Van even says it. It's kind of just like a little bit of luck of like, holy shit, you became the guy, the god.
But you know what? Maybe not
the god.
Maybe Kevin needed like his idols to be around to like inspire and motivate him. So I don't think that is maybe necessarily true now that I say it. But like I feel like, I don't know. I feel like all these dudes have right now is like the Olympics, and the Olympics are kind of whack. So like, and they have to go to all these weird like contests like that are rated different things, and yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. And you know what I just saw is the FICE is going on in France right now, and I saw Matt Ray posted on his story saying Courage Adams had the best run, very obviously, but he was scored last by the judges, and I was like, damn, that would suck to go and like kill it, and then nope, last place. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, it's just a bummer that these guys are so creative and they get put into these environments where they have to like conform to time and rules and shit.
Right. You're gonna get more points by doing a bar spin on this and then flowing through here instead of doing the creative thing that you want to do.
Yeah. I don't know. It's such a weird thing. Like I don't. Yeah. It's just very counterintuitive to like what these guys are actually world class at. You know.
Yeah.
Um,
It's weird to, I mean, even the whole concept of like BMX freestyle contests is a interesting thing. But let's talk about this part in particular. What do you remember the most? And was there anything that he was scared of doing? Like, does he
uh,
like when he does a decade down some stairs? Is he just fucking sending it up multiple times, or?
no, I mean a lot of this stuff is like first try. Like this nose, I know he did that a few times and just like jumped down. I think that was Puerto Rico. But like for Kevin, I made sure that like if I was skating or if I was like whatever I was filming, I made sure that like I was gonna nail the shot on my end because like
He's
I didn't
gonna do
want
it
to.
first try.
Yeah, dude, he's just
Yeah.
gonna do it first try. I don't want to trim his head, you know, like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was that was the nervous part. Is just like he was gonna do something and land. Like that's me running behind him.
Yeah. What do you? Is that fisheye from the? From
That's
the
like fisheye
yeah. What
FS
camera is that?
700. I think FS 700. Yeah,
Sick.
yeah, like that one. I definitely trimmed his head. See how I'm pointing?
Yeah.
But I did like this part because there was just so much movement to a lot of the shots that I was doing, and um, yeah, man, that was Japan. Yeah, that was Japan. I mean, he could take like a pretty normal spot and do something bonkers on it like that. So, you know, a lot of guys they would want like a really specific setup, but you know, whether it was something enormous like that or just like a little nose to, you know, G-turn bar spin thing, like he could make a lot of things work. This was a pretty like important one for me because I made like a little behind the scenes video, not behind the scenes, like a bonus section with it too. So like Kevin and Corey Nastasio and Fuzzy Hall and Gary, they all have like these kind of like bonus section parts that are all in black and white, and it's just kind of like montage stuff like this, but it has like a voiceover of them like kind of talking about either it was a trick or just kind of some like life stuff. I think Fuzzy was more about just kind of like his life and everything, and those were the most meaningful to me because I got to work with guys at like just so many different parts of their career.
That's true. Name that list again, dude. Fuzzy Hall, Kevin Peraza, like
Fuzzy Hall, Gary Young, Kevin Peraza, Corey Nastasio, like I mean, you basically have a guy every like 8 years for like 35 years, 40 years of BMX, you know?
That's just the generational lineup right there.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Shout out to Kevin Peraza. And shout out to, I got Justin Kosman on the podcast. He created Vans BMX Illustrated. So what's the origins of Vans BMX Illustrated? Like, how did it, was that an idea from you? Like, how, with a company like Vans, how does a project like this come to be?
The riders telling the team manager that they really want to do like a full length video. And then the team manager, Jerry Batters, coming up with the budget to do it. And I'll be the first to admit that that's not something that I really ever thought I would get to do. And we only had a year to do it. And there were actually a couple months where we weren't going to film because the budget, it was like Q3 and we had to kind of like chill out on spending because of like the parent VF's like Vans parent company VF, like it would always happen in like October or something where they'd be like, oh, we gotta like not spend as much because they want to make their quarterly numbers or something. And then in December we would kind of like either get extra money or just stick to the budget. But anyway,
that shit's interesting, dude. And like even for Jerry to like get the budget, what does that even look like? I'm so curious. Like, is it in a literal boardroom or a Zoom meeting where it's like, I'm like, can I?
I mean, dude, it's him on a spreadsheet. You know, I mean, he was a mathematical wizard. Like he was like one of the best producers I've ever had financially. Like if we needed money for something, like he would find a way to, you know, buy footage from someone else or get us on a trip somewhere and be like, oh, I'll make like that region pay for it, you know? So he didn't have to pay for all of it. Like he was excellent. I mean, I bet we spent like $1 million on that thing when all is said and done.
On Illustrated?
Yeah. I think if you factored in, which is probably important to do, like all the riders' salaries and everything. I bet all in all it was $1 million. And I think the only metric we had after the thing was done was that we set like a record for selling skate highs. So the video came out, and then you got the video free from a Vans store if you went in and bought like a pair of skate highs or something.
Huh. Okay.
And so at the time, I don't know if it was that year or if it was like, I don't think it was ever, but it could have been like, that was like the highest selling like couple months like of skate highs like during that promotion.
That's badass.
So, you know, whether or not we made our money back, I don't think that's the point, because like the sports, like the team marketing initiatives never really had like an ROI. It was really just all about like getting out to grassroots events and like bringing the team to different regions and just like making impact within the sport. So like when these guys would have those limited edition shoes, like they never really did like huge runs of them, but it was kind of like an excuse to make like a story about the shoe and do a commercial and do something special and then do like an event at a store, you know, to like for the release, you know. So that was the fact that they never like really cared about like making money back, because they knew that it was never going to make their money. You know, if you do like 300 pairs of like a limited edition shoe, like, you know how much a shoe costs, you know how much you're spending on marketing. And if you break even, it's just like, okay, but then they got a bunch of earned media, you know, they got a bunch of earned media through events or through, you know, magazines or web coverage or things like that. So
that's an interesting term that I don't think everybody would be familiar with. Earned media. What is earned media?
So you have paid and earned. And so like, I don't know, like let's say Dakota rides for Vans and he does like a clip on Instagram or something and gets like 500,000 views or something. So that is earned media, because you didn't have to pay Instagram to get that in front of people's eyeballs. You know what I mean? So when like Jerry would keep track of all the riders' photos and magazines and video parts and everything, he would add up all the impressions. Like for a print magazine, you would say, okay, the circulation's like 200,000. And then, you know, this web video got like 50,000. And so like, let's say there's like 250,000 views. I know my numbers are going all over the place, but like 250,000 views, that you didn't have to pay for. Like if you would have to run an ad in Ride Magazine, and then if you had to like pay to sponsor the video, you know what I mean? Like how much would that cost versus how much you pay DAC to kind of get it in front of the audience for free, you know? Yeah. That's kind of what would justify having all these teams, you know, like they would be part of or create content themselves. And so like if they appeared, you know, it's like, I don't know, this, you may not know this, but like, remember when Eminem had that, he had that like interview on NBC and he was like drinking a Red Bull or something. I mean, if you had to like, it was kind of a famous placement for Red Bull back in the day, but like if you had to pay NBC to run an ad, a Red Bull like advertisement, you know, it'd be like a couple $1 million. But if you like paid Eminem like $400,000 to have a Red Bull on his like mixing table, you know, like net you're ahead, right? Because that's like, if it's in the shop for like 4 minutes, like a 4-minute ad on NBC would be through the roof, right? So that's kind of like, that's a bigger example, you know. But that's
so interesting. That example in particular, would you still call that earned media, or is that paid product placement? Like, is that under the umbrella of earned media, since the broadcast itself is the earned media? I don't know.
Totally
hold that thought.
Totally
I'm
organic.
Gonna pee my pants. I'm gonna pee my pants, dude. Be right back. I want it. Well, Eminem, earned media, Red Bull. Did you miss me?
I did. I think I got to the bottom of it. So earned, we would call it earned media because it was like an editorial interview with Eminem. right? Like it wasn't like Red Bull didn't create a music video with Eminem and then pay NBC to like run it, right? That would be like paid media, you know?
Yeah.
Or even just like a traditional like interstitial ad or like a interruption marketing, as I refer to as it sometimes. But like so like guys like him, or sometimes you'll see people that are like celebrity anchors, they'll have integration rights with their deal. So they probably can't have logos. Like let's say you're a fucking on Sports Center, right? Like you're an anchor on Sports Center. You probably can't wear like any name brands like that say the name, but you could be wearing, like Dior could be like paying you to wear their shit exclusively, right? Or if you're like Michael Bisping is like a UFC fighter, he does like post-fight interviews and he has like a big baller watch. I'm sure he
gets paid to have that watch.
He gets paid, you know, for them, and that's like earned media for them, right? Because they're paying Bisping like $100,000 a year and watches, but that dude's got that watches on TV like for hours. You know, at the end of the year when you add up all the TV time that watch got, so net, they're getting more than they would get out of just like advertisements. You know, there's different types of impact, but I don't know. You know what I mean?
It's so interesting to me, just the marketing world and thinking about it, and like you don't really think about how much it costs to just run like a Facebook ad, for example. But I've gotten to see behind the scenes of these companies that are education and communities for real estate investors, Sub2 and Astro Flipping, like Jamil and Paces. And I worked at the company and I got to see they were spending like $75,000 a week on Facebook ads. And it's like, hold on, what? Like, dude, holy crazy. Shit. So crazy. Much money.
And that is, and those guys are big time within their industry, but they're not like Nike big time. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like think about how much money those brands burn just to be in everybody's story stream, you know? Yeah. Like holy shit.
Yeah. It's so interesting. It's story stream you mentioned. Like that's interesting. Are you talking about story ads?
Yeah, like interruptions in between, like flipping between like Instagram stories.
Yeah. Dude. It's paper, man. It makes me like I know a guy who does like ad buying or media buying for a couple companies, and his rate is $10,000 a month, and he, you know, it's literally like 4 hours of work and then you get $10,000 a month. I'm like, what the fuck am I doing making videos, dude?
Yeah, and he's spending he's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of other people's money trying to enter your brain space.
For real though. What I'm thinking in terms of, if I'm listening to this and I'm a BMX broke boy and I want to learn a skill, what skill would you tell the nerds to learn?
Man, it's got nothing to do with BMX, but I would say like if they wanted to be in the film industry or the production industry, if you're extroverted, I would say stick with the camera. Like really put a lot of time into like honing your craft as like a DP and a camera operator. I'd say if you're more introverted, being in the lighting department is pretty satisfying. If I would have experienced that a lot earlier in my career, I could have seen myself gravitating to like a lighting only position, like as a gaffer or a key grip or a lighting technician.
I could see you doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I did it for most of my projects for many, many years. It's just that you get to a certain point and the gear is so big and you don't have the time to do it yourself. Not that I would want to, but you just bring on experts who are better at that than you. But like, you just have to be as close to the client as possible. Like if you're not the one getting the client, then you really aren't, in the driver's seat. And I've been lucky enough to work with like client direct for tons and tons of brands. And I've had the most recurring work through client direct work. So that means like not working through an agency. So like the agency doesn't hire me. It's someone at the brand, whether it's a marketing director or a creative director. And then we just make the agreement between us. And that doesn't mean there's not an agency involved. Maybe there was an agency that created the marketing campaign for them that year, right? Maybe the agency is like producing the shoot, but the creative director, like if they trust you, they will say that they want to use you, rather than someone that works for the production company or the creative agency.
Yeah.
And the closer you are to the client, like your paycheck's not going to get cut in half as much, like when you're working with an agency, like, yes, that means you're working on a much bigger shoot. And that can mean that you're making more money. But if you want to work a lot, like I would try to have the relationships with the brands, because you're really, when I say brands, it's really a relationship with like a person, like a real fucking person.
Literally a human. Yeah.
And that person works at that company and they're going to work at another company in 5 years. Right. And if you can be someone that they trust to execute their vision, to show up on time and sober most days, that's what they want to know, is like that you can get this job done for them. And then they can call you for the next one and they don't have to worry about you like messing it up. Like the last thing that any of us want to do is to keep hiring like different crew every single fucking shoot, right? It'd be like working for a bike company and then you're like, oh, we got to find someone else to make our frames every single year. You know how inconsistent that shit would be?
Yeah.
So that's sort of how I look at it. Like, I'm trying to get on some bigger shoots, like some big pharmaceutical shoots. And I do have to reach out to agencies and production companies and pitch myself as like, a highly specialized sports photographer, a lifestyle photographer that has a team of professionals that can pull this stuff off at a lot of different levels. And I know those aren't going to be reoccurring relationships, but that like working client direct can get you a lot of work. And at some points in your life, you need that, you need a lot of frequency and you need to build up a relationship with people, right? Yeah. You need to like practice taking on things that you can execute on over and over and over. And right now I'm trying to take on some bigger shoots that maybe are only going to come around like 3 or 4 times a year, like doing some big pharmaceutical or healthcare stuff. And that's just where I want to try and be at. I have some really good clients, that I work with, every single month, that I worked with for, like some of the golf stuff, like almost 9 years now, which I never thought I'd work in golf.
Yeah.
But, it's just like working with people that trust you to do a good job based on like the metrics that they have for their projects,
Yeah.
So like
you always hear people emphasize like everything's relationships. Like if you just are tight with the right people, you'll never worry for money in a day in your life. But I'm curious, like what's a way that you've gained a relationship intentionally, if that's even possible? Like if I'm listening to this, I'm like, yeah, relationships, but like, what am I going to do differently? Go hang out. I heard somebody say, go hang out at a 5-star hotel's bar, like an expensive bar, even though you can't afford it. And then just hang out all day, maybe drink, maybe not, but introduce yourself to people who sit next to you and you meet some people with money. But
yeah, like how do you
even make a relationship, dude?
Yeah. Well, I think you start off with like doing a good job at the stuff that you've already been trusted to do. And those people will give you referrals, so whether it's like they go somewhere else or someone reaches out to them and is like, hey, I need a guy. Who do you use? And then they're like, boom, use Justin, like that's really how it's worked for me. Right. And, whether it's like a production company that, there's a production company down here in San Diego I've worked with a bunch, but all their jobs are different. So like they know that they can trust me to do kind of anything that comes across their level of work for still photography. But they have to like pitch that to their clients, right? So I have to have like my portfolio ready. Like I have to have, all my website updated. I have to look like I'm fairly active on social media or like LinkedIn. That doesn't answer your question, but I think you can't ignore like doing a good job. right? Because if you're doing a good job for enough people, then word's going to get around, right?
Yeah, exactly. And there's no fucking trick. There's no answer to my question. Like, how do you
No,
make a relationship? What's the
a lot of
weirdest way
people
you've
think
met
there is
somebody?
though, you know, and
Yeah.
I haven't had to do that. I would like to do that because that would kind of feel like I had a little bit more agency in my or destiny. But I don't know. I'm kind of going through it right now. Like I've been listening to like a lot of like art producer podcasts and like taking notes on, you know, who these people are and who they work for, and trying to figure out a way that's like not super salesy to hit them up and be like, hey man, I live in San Diego. I worked in, you know, the action sports industry for 15 years. You know, I have an emphasis on lighting, and we can do a lot of like really scrappy shoots, but we can also scale up to like a shoot that's like a, you know, a couple $100,000. You know, I've worked on, you know, I've gaffed a couple pharmaceutical commercials the last couple of months. Like I kind of have an idea of, you know, how to produce my own department. I have a lot of like crew members that also work as photographers, which can be really helpful. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that too.
I'm
Because
sold, man. That's a good pitch.
yeah, I mean, it's a good pitch because you know, you
Because
know
you've done
me,
the shit. Yeah.
but
Oh, maybe,
you
yeah.
got to think like, okay,
Like a
they don't know
cold
me,
email. Yeah.
and they're getting that like same pitch by a bunch of random people. So like, I really think that everything lies in the referrals. And I don't think that's necessarily like Yelp reviews for me, right? Or you,
No
but
shit.
I think what I'm starting to see how other people do it is like they put together like little case studies, right? So like let's say it's a shoot that I did like a couple of years ago, and it's like, okay, this is a shoot we did for like, you know, Cobra Golf, you know, it was to feature their new putters, and this was the location and the budget, and this is the number of deliverables, and it's just like, you know, is this number of crew, we spent this amount of time on site, you know, they needed assets for stills for like a, let's say it was like a pre-line or something, like it was just for dealers or retailers. So basically like show them that you've done what they want to do, and you can kind of speak their language and give them a context, right? Because that's the one thing that's really, really hard about portfolios is like you could go look at that PDF I sent you,
Mm-hmm.
and like none of those are that hard to do technically. And I also don't have any context in there. Like there's that putter that's sitting on that leather chair. It's like an averagely good photo, but we probably shot like 20 different photos of putters, all different sets throughout that day, right? So like the technical side of things starts to like taper out a little bit, and then the quantity kind of raises, right? It's like, can you reach this level of quality, but can you do it 20 times within a day, right? And that's the sort of the thing that you can't really get across that easily without like really showing how the
Like
sausage is made. You know what I
an
mean?
actual case study, which I think is super interesting. I love that idea because it's more because everybody can look at this and be like, "Wow, great photo, dude," but they don't know the the shit that went into it like you would in a case study, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Who are these
Like,
people that you're reaching out to? Like art producers? What is this?
yeah, so it'd be like an art buyer or like an art producer at an agency or a production company, or even like a creative director at like a big brand that maybe has like an in-house agency structure, you know, where like they
So
have a lot of different projects or a lot of different like seasons, or now what's happening is like you have a lot of different like collaborations where they need like a really specific look for like a very limited run of products that are like co-branded, you know.
yeah. So
um
art producer. I'm thinking traditional art like painting, but that's not what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so like an art producer would be in charge of like, okay, they would get like a brief and say like, okay, we're doing like Brooks Running has this new trail running shoe coming out, and we want to show people in their early 20s having fun in like a fast-paced trail running environment. And then they would be like, okay, so they're going to try and find someone that either does that or says they can do it. And what happens, they'll usually go to like a photo rep and be like, hey, here's our brief. Who are your sports guys? And they're like, oh, we've got like 3 sports guys. Here they are. And that we think this guy would be good at it. And then so they'll go to a couple like photo reps. Or some guys aren't repped and they just like reach out to those people directly and they kind of do their own marketing, and they send like, they'll do like personal projects and send them to these art buyers or art producers and kind of show them like, oh, hey, this is what I've been up to.
Yeah.
Begging them in a really polite and artistic way. Like, hey, if you'd like to pay me to do whatever you have next up, I'll take it.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah. It's a small industry, but for the level of specificity that some of these campaigns come in at, it kind of creates a little world for itself. And, our friend Andrew White, that photographer from Kansas City, Nashville, like that's his full-time job. Like that's the level that he works at, for sports brands. Like he does a lot with Garmin, and he does, some pharmaceutical and healthcare work, but he has an agent, he has a producer out here, and he candidly he'll tell me that he'll bid on jobs, and he'll maybe get like 20 or 30% of those jobs, and that's just how it is. Like sometimes you come in and like, even though you're like the agency recommended artist for this job, art photographer or DP, sometimes the client will just want someone different, or sometimes it'll come down to you not living in the place where they're shooting, and they want someone that just has like local knowledge of, the area, or that's out there before. It can kind of come down to some things that maybe aren't, I don't know, they're not super tangible, but they just want to know that they don't have to fly someone in. And I don't know. Andrew's great. I'm glad that we are friends at this point in our life, kind of our post action sports career.
BMX days. Let's check out. Yeah. Let's show you nerds and some Andrew White shit. So he's full-time photographer.
His stuff is
that's
great.
Damn good, man.
Excellent, super clean, beautiful, wonderful post-production. It's very, very talent focused. See a little
courage.
Red Bull in there. Courage Adams.
Good. Who else? What other photographers and videographers come from BMX and are kind of established like you and Andrew White? It makes me proud as a biker. Good job, Andrew White. Keep going, bro.
Like there's some mountain bike photographers that do a lot of commercial work. Like Blayback, like Mike Blayback, he used to shoot for DC for a really long time for skateboarding, and he does a lot of commercial work. A lot of the snowboard photographers.
How do you spell Blayback? Not like that.
Mike Blayback.
Mike Blayback.
Blayback or I think.
Yeah, there it is. Blayback.
Yeah, that's not
Blayback.
him.
There
Blayback. There we go. Yeah.
Damn, Rick Rubin. Pretty nice.
Yeah, it's. Damn. Yeah. Automotive, man. That's one thing that I would love to do, but you just, man, you're like, your logistics team has to be so strong, like.
Why, as opposed to like mountain biking? What's harder?
Well, like you have to get, okay, so like wherever this is shot, like go back to, or if this is just on autoplay, but like, okay, you got to figure out how to get that truck to that location in like a trailer, and then you got to have car prep. Like I've been on a few car shoots,
I can see it.
Like okay, we want the wheels turned this specific way because they have like hubcap logos, so then you got to like position the car and then jack the car up and turn the wheel, and then like this place might not be super accessible, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, and then if you've got a whole agency involved, you got to figure out where to put like a 40-foot motorhome, possibly two of them.
Yeah, you know what? In a way, it's like your talent is 6,000 pounds and can't move itself. That's the talent is the car.
Yeah. And then God forbid that you're doing any like running footage and you have to have like a camera car with a big ass crane. Then you're like shutting down streets. So you have to have a producer that really really does that stuff at a high level. It's like that's a really hard industry, I think, to get into logistically, because you hire a production company that's used to moving trucks around. Like they're not going to do anything small, right? So that's like a that's like an industry that you would have to like get into on the crew side maybe, and kind of see how they do it all. But at the end of the day, like you just have to like try and shoot all this shit yourself. Like you have to go out and, rent a dope car and get it to a location that maybe you have an advantage in, and try and shoot some stuff on your own, because the idea that someone's going to hire you to shoot cars without having shot cars is just not going to happen.
Yeah.
Now that I mentioned that, my first big job was shooting for Red Bull, their Formula One car. So a $2 million car, we shot it for 2 weeks down in South America. When 20 BMX went out of business because the publisher was like kind of shady, Kevin McAvoy and I lost our jobs. And then 2 weeks later, I'm in Cartagena, Colombia, shooting a Formula One car, making like my full day rate for like over 2 weeks. So I went from thinking I was going to have to move from California back to Illinois. And then a week later, I had more money in my bank account than I'd ever seen before. And it was only because when that magazine went out of business, I had all these photos that weren't going to run. And so I sold them to Red Bull, because there was like a Red Bull BMX racer that was being featured in the magazine. And the art buyer there, or the producer, was like, "These are great. You just had these laying around. What are you doing next week? We need another photographer."
Damn.
And I was like, "Well, how much?" And they're like, she's like 18 days. And I was like, "Well, how many days are we shooting?" And she goes, "Doesn't matter. Just 18 times your day rate." And that was more zeros than I had to think about in a long time. So
that's great. What a fucking first taste of the like hustle. You're like, oh shit, I could do this.
Yeah. And you know what? I haven't done many car shoots since, but it was just me being in the right place at the right time. And like I said, no fault of my own. Like I didn't try to do that, but I think you just got to get close to like a big city, and opportunities like these are just all over the place, so
makes sense. I love that. That's great advice. So specifically, what was the answer to the question that you said of which talent to work on? Like, what's the most valuable talent that you think of right now? Just pick one.
I would say if you can learn how to light, because lighting is physics, and you can't really like AI physics. You know what I mean? Like you can't like crypto hack physics with lighting. Like if you know how to light, that's something that isn't really going to go away. And if you can make things look beautiful, because like photography is just like the Latin word, it's like writing with light, right? So like if you know how to like position light, work with light, bounce light, shape light, I think that is the most timeless skill. And it really doesn't matter. Like I feel flattered when we light something on set and the client can take a picture with their iPhone and it looks amazing, right? Because that means we can shoot it with any camera we want, but we've created this like moment in time that's like really special or really flattering, but it'll last all day. Like that's the real skill. Like when I was in college, my mentor, I was like putting together a portfolio, and I had like a sunset shot in there. And he said something to the effect of, if you don't control that sunset, then that really doesn't need to be in your portfolio, right? Because if you can't like snap your fingers and make that sunset happen, like, one thing is like you recognizing like a way to shoot a silhouette against a sunset, that's one thing, but just like a sunset with nothing else happening, it's kind of irrelevant, because it really doesn't speak to anything that you can do or you can bring to a shoot.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're just saying I can exist while the sun's going down. You're not saying I'm controlling the light.
Yeah,
I agree. I think lighting applies to like more industries than you think too. Like it's photo, video, but it's also in, the performing arts. It's also in, video is movies, but maybe even in putting up like displays and like at events where they're going to do just setting up for an event could be a lighter's job. It's kind of, Talking to you just is always refreshing because you just remember, oh yeah, there's so much fucking opportunity out there, and sometimes you can just get stuck in our little BMX world and be like, I'm broke, I'm gonna be broke forever. But like, if you
Dude,
just
like
branch out and do something, you're good.
when Vans like didn't renew my retainer, because I'd been on a retainer with them for like 12 years, and um, our team manager moved to events, and I didn't get renewed, and I was like really, really, like, I'm not gonna say depressed, but I was like had a really significant like identity crisis, even though the money I was making at Vans was probably 20% of my annual income. Like all this other stuff I was doing, like commercially, like outside of Vans, made up the lion's share of my income. I still like identified as that person in that part of the industry. And it was like and then when I started getting on bigger and bigger sets and bigger shoots, I was just like, wow, I just wrote a quote for more than I make in a year on like on just like a 2-day shoot or something, and that's not to brag, but that's just like, and that's not even like a big shoot, that's still a small shoot,
Yeah.
but it's like you can be valuable to a number of people or brands or organizations or agencies, and it really is up to you, like who do you want to be valuable to. Like you can be valuable to like a really small company that means a lot to you. Like working for Vans meant a lot to me because I grew up riding BMX, and I was really into the, like, I lived the culture, like it meant something to me outside of like just like selling shoes or like clocking in for a job. But you can be valuable to people at different levels, but with the same exertion, you know what I mean? So I don't love that term, like work smarter, not harder, but like you can do a photo shoot or like a video production, or you can tell a story for any number of brands,
Yeah.
So, and I don't want to say they're not drastically different in the way that you do them, but the way you like put them together is different, but that's all something you can learn, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was a fun transition for me psychologically, to be like, okay, I can be a bike rider. I can like riding all types of bikes, and I can be a director of photography and a photographer, but they don't have to like only work together. Like
Yeah.
I can be a bike rider all week and on the weekends, and then I can also go like do a studio shoot for something totally unrelated, and I can be good or bad at both of them exclusively, and they don't mean I'm good or bad at either one. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's like it's okay to be like bad. Like it's okay to have like a shitty day at work. Like I don't have them very often, but I also don't put myself in that position. You know what I mean? Like I don't promise something that I haven't done before, or I don't think we can do with the resources, or like, anyway, it was like it really kind of like psychologically gave me the freedom to like really care about the lighting and the photography that I'm doing, regardless of like what's in front of the lens. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's an interesting point about the identity of it. It's like, where does your identity come from? And for maybe a minute, it was coming from the fact that you work for Vans and I'm BMX photographer. But it's at the end of the day, it's like, that's not your identity, really.
I would say it's only as much of your identity as you want it to be, because like I could still try to be that guy, and
Yeah.
if that's what made me happy, or if that's like what I really wanted to do, then like I would still do it, but yeah, I don't know. I think it's important to like not take things too seriously. And my friend Greg, he said something to me like a couple years ago, and I don't, he might have said it directly to me, like specifically, but it was just like, this, like whatever is happening to you it's not who you are. It's like something that you're just experiencing as a person, like it wasn't happening yesterday. It might be happening today, but it's like not going to be happening in a month from now. And so like, why are you, I don't know,
Attaching to it so hard.
Yeah, attaching to it.
Greg
like
sounds pretty zen. He's done some enlightenment.
Yeah. yeah.
That's
Dude.
some enlightenment, dude. That's great.
No,
Who's
but
been the worst? Who's been the worst client over the years? Who's a nightmare to work with? Who's BMX?
Man, when I had that deal with GT, yeah, GT kind of wasn't that great towards the end. So like, just for like easy numbers, let's say they bought like 40 days of like production or photo shoots throughout the year, right? And so it'd be like, okay, you're going to be here for 5 days, you're going to be here for 7 days, you're going to do this. So like December rolls around and they have like 3 days left. Okay. And they're like, okay, we're going to fly you to, we don't have anything to do, but since we have 3 days left, we're going to fly you to Minneapolis to go shoot at a bike shop who had like a record number of sales. And we're going to fly you in one day, shoot, and then fly. And then all of a sudden I'm like adding up these 3 days and it's like 9 days, right? Because of the travel. And that was like inexperience on my part. But I was like, really? Like, that's what you want to do? And I think I ended up just telling him like, don't pay me for this last month. Like,
yeah, I'd
I don't
rather
want
not.
to do this, you know, like
Yeah.
you're like, this is like 9 days. Like I can do one of these, you know, and it got into, it was like, I did owe it to him, but the way I'd organized the retainer, like it certainly wasn't in my favor. And I didn't kind of predict something like that would happen, with travel days and everything. But like, yeah, like if that was like the worst client I've had, then that's not bad,
Yeah.
I mean, dude, I can't even talk about this stuff. It didn't affect me, but like, I'll tell you offline, but when you have like a producer who's handling budgets that are like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, like kind of over the course of a year, and you can kind of see things that they're sort of like diverting, like, oh, I thought I was supposed to have like 2 PAs and a photo assistant on that set, and I only had a photo assistant. Like, where'd the PAs go?
Yeah.
And you start to be like, oh, they're embezzling,
Yeah.
But
ooh, now I do have to know offline. Yeah, you can't say that online probably.
Anyway,
that's fun.
That's like, and I would say, to look at it in a positive way, dude, of course that shit's going to happen. The higher up, the more money that you're kind of working in, you're dipping your toe in a river like that, you're going to see some shady people, people are going to do shady shit, whether it's like, someone stealing your iPod on a BMX trip, like in 2001, or someone's like, trying to peel off like 10 grand and say it's for props, but it's just, they're billing it, to themselves, like it's that same kind of shitty mentality, just at different levels. So, I mean,
so who took your iPod in 2001?
No, I didn't. No one took my iPod.
No, but there's shitty people in every industry, and a lot of them tend to do well. Like the sociopath can get pretty far in life and then start taking a little bit from here and there and just get away with it. Morality. What's morality? If you could give yourself advice going back to your, like, I guess, beginning of business, the transition from like doing, I don't know, side hustles here and there, what didn't you know then that you know now that you wish you could go back and shake your former self and be like, learn this, or do this?
Instead of buying one condo, buy two. Instead of buying one house, buy two. Just like,
hindsight is 20/20,
dude. I mean, I just got really lucky with the time I did most of my real estate, and I've only done like 2 transactions, but both times, like, I just should have bought 2 houses,
Yeah.
And at the time you like think you can't handle it. And especially with like being able to leverage like a 30-year loan, there's really no reason I shouldn't have, whether or not I would have gotten approved, I should have just like not been so scared. And like, but I should have been scared because I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. I was ignorant. Right. Like
That's it
that's
though. Do the things. I think that's the piece of advice. Besides, but double your real estate. I think doing things that you are uncomfortable about doing or feeling scared about. That's do it. Don't let that stop you. I think
yeah,
that's
and
good
that's
advice.
usually like I think if we all take like a good hard look at things that frighten us, they usually align with some things that are also our goals or our ambitions. You know, at least the things that I think about. Um, and not to say that like you should always run towards the things that you're scared of, but I think it's important to like really analyze that stuff and think about like why, why are you scared of doing those things? And like a lot of people underestimate, I think they overestimate what they can do in like a month, and they really underestimate like what they can do in like a year if they really, really, really wanted to like add a skill to their portfolio. Um,
I like that.
like
Yeah.
dude, a year is so long, and like, like information is just so accessible now.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible how you can change your mindset. Like, dude, when I was like driving around California in the early 2000s, going to like shoot at dirt jumps and trails and like weird backyard skate parks. I was listening to like DVDs from Success Magazine, like listening to like Jim Rohn and like all these like book summaries and excerpts, and it just shaped my perspective and attitude about all this shit I was doing. And it's hard for me to like separate out like kind of the person that I would have been, but man, that was like such, like I had more of a personal transformation like in, I'd say, those first few years I was in California than I did when I went to college. Like not like college was certainly useful, but in terms of like personal growth and yeah, and just like goal setting and ambition and charisma, like dude, I learned so much listening to some of like the best speakers and personal development coaches of our time like speak. And
That's
even,
great.
even if it wasn't like directly correlating to something I was doing, just listening to someone speak and articulate and storytell at a high level was like one of the best things that I could have been listening to for hours and hours and hours.
Fuck yeah, because then that becomes like almost normal and default, and so because you don't know what you don't know until you see it. Like so, like getting that experience of here's what speaking could be like, and then you apply it to your regular life, and you're skipping ums and ahs and all this shit, and like telling a proper story versus just kind of rambling through your day. If you like talk to, I don't know, 21-year-old kid who's listening that maybe is like, oh, maybe I should listen to some like self-improvement stuff, who nowadays would you recommend? Or it doesn't even matter time wise, just
Dude, Jim, I'd say Jim Rohn, and he's passed away, but just like the stories that he tells, and it's gonna sound like you're listening to like an old man talk in a tin can to like a room full of like executives in the 80s. But
yeah.
that's really what you are listening to. He recorded a lot of his business presentations, but I can only speak to like what resonated with me, and for some reason, like Jim Rohn talking about like him being just like poor, destitute guy from Omaha, Nebraska, and turning his own life around, and becoming a more valuable part of society and business. Like that was like a really simple thing, but for me to hear that over and over and over, and it was, yeah, I mean, it was simplified down. It was like, yeah, and so can you, right? But the way he articulated it and the passion he spoke with was not only like very applicable, but it was really, really authentic. And I think I was kind of absorbing that on two different levels, like the way he was speaking and also what he was speaking about were really important. Like, I don't know, like you listen to like Tim Ferriss or Peter Attia or like Chris Williams, on podcasts right now, like, yeah, and like a lot of the stoicism
Ryan
teachings
Holiday.
are kind of interesting,
Yeah.
I think I would say the stoic I'd say some of the Stoic teachings probably won't resonate with you until you're probably in your mid to late 30s, because I just don't think they will. I think you're going to have some bullshit happen in your life before that stuff is really going to like sink in. So there were some things, like there were some books that I read early on that I had to reread later. And I like couldn't believe that I even fucking read them when I was in my early 20s. And I was like,
Yeah,
how
'cause
did
you
I
have
read
no
this? Like,
context. Yeah.
I like did not get it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
whether it's like, whether you've got to, you know, have some like career experience or relationship experience, or like have like someone close to you pass away unexpectedly, or just have some sort of like trauma or disaster in your life, I sometimes think like that stuff, like it happens to everybody in different ways, but that can kind of be like a reset moment for you. So for me, I moved out to California in 2003 after going to college, and in 2004 my brother killed himself. And so I was like, I hadn't really set like roots down here in California. And so part of my thinking was like, oh, I need to move back home and like take care of my parents, whatever the fuck that meant. Like my parents didn't need taken care of, but like I was sort of like half in, half out, you know, like I didn't really have like a full-time gig. So I didn't really have the finances to like project that much of like a financial runway out for me to like feel like I lived in California. So like the easy thing for me to do was to basically like pour myself into my work, you know? And I think at that point I was like ready to really like resonate with a lot of like personal development. Like Dale Carnegie's good, Jim Rohn, like fuck, who else?
You're saying basically you didn't have context for those books or lessons to apply in your life until after you had real tragedy happen?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm using tragedy lightly. Like it didn't ruin my family. I'm not going to make it out to more than it was, but it's certainly like,
It's tragic.
It aged my parents like probably 30 years in a week.
Yeah,
And
fuck.
that was really tough to see, but I was kind of removed from it enough that I was able to kind of like compartmentalize it, but it certainly changed my perspective on a lot of things. And for some reason it like flipped this switch in me, and it was like, man, you're gonna stay out here. You're not gonna go back home, and you're gonna fucking make shit happen out here. Like you were gonna do, like you're just gonna work and do everything that you can do, and that's just like how you're gonna do it. You know?
Fuck yeah. He became the fire under your ass, which is a beautiful thing in a way, you know?
And when you're that young, like that's, you know, take any motivation that you can get. Like for some reason, I held a grudge against like one of my girlfriend's dads, who was like, you know, a hobbyist photographer. And he was like talking to me about cameras, and he was like talking about aperture and iris. And like, he was like, you don't even know what that is. And then like when I, several years later, like I mailed him my first cover that I shot, you know, like, it's like, why the fuck did I do that?
Did you really, dude? That's amazing. Fuck you,
like I was
dad.
it was like, yeah, it was like it was a big like fuck you moment for him, but that was like the stupidest fucking reason to do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's
it is a
just
reason.
like, but it's like, hey,
shit.
I did it and I got it done, and it got me through things. And it was, you know, cause like part of me was just like, yeah, you moved out to California for 1 year, then your brother killed himself, and then you had to like move home because you're like real sad and stuff. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to be that.
Yeah,
I'm
that
not going to
story
be that guy.
sucks. Yeah.
You know?
Fuck
And my
yeah.
parents didn't ask me to move back either, you know, so it's not like they were begging me to move back, but it was just something that like, it was a big transition in my life, just moving west. And then to have that kind of be something that I could have easily used as an excuse to like, you know, not follow through on something that I really, you know, wanted to do at the time. Yeah.
Take the motivation you can. Those were good names too. Dale Carnegie wrote that, How to Win Friends and Influence People, which is a good book. My dad told me to read it when I was a youngin.
Napoleon Hill, you know, but like, dude, if you read that when you're in junior high, it wouldn't mean a fucking thing.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like
Napoleon Hill is Think and Grow Rich, right?
Yeah, he's Think and Grow Rich. Yeah, dude, I have like a whole book. Who's that? Anyway,
I think just even like, I don't know, maybe maybe somebody hears this and it's like, okay, I don't know what book, but I'm going to start listening to self-improvement books, or just like spending the time that you would be listening to a comedy compilation of podcasts and spend half of that time just trying to learn something to make your life better is like,
here's what's going to happen. Nothing will happen for months and maybe years. And then you will hear or read a sentence that will not be significant in any literary way, but it will be an aha moment for you at that point in your life. And it'll change your perspective, or it'll give you a perspective that you've been looking for. And maybe that happens, like at a moment in time, right? You need to kind of just be living in that world, and then, something will serendipitously like make sense to you. But that's kind of how it happened for me. And
what was your aha moment? What was the sentence?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't, but I had several of them, and it was me pressing rewind on the CD, right, on the audio CD in my minivan, like going to a photo shoot and like just listening to them say that over and over and over, and being like, fuck, like that is like that is the attitude that I need to have. Or like, if someone can do that in that way, that's a learnable skill. And that means that like I can learn anything that I want to learn. You know what I mean? And
that's bomb.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much stuff like that you can choose to listen to now that it would be really hard to choose. Like when I'm editing photos, I've got YouTube open on the other page, just listening to podcasts and things like that. And it isn't the best way to listen to those things, right? I really think like taking notes is maybe one of the best things that you can do, but that also means that you have to like turn off
everything
a lot
else,
of things to make that happen.
Yeah. There's something about taking notes that is like scientifically proven. You write it down and you remember it more, which is interesting. Like I'll do that I feel overwhelmed and I'm like, okay, what do I got to do tomorrow? And I write it all out and thinking that I'll check it tomorrow, but I just go through the day and nail the whole list. And maybe at the end of the day, I'll be like, yeah, but as soon as you write it down, you remember it.
Yeah.
But so you listen to podcasts, huh? How many of my podcasts have you listened to? I joke.
Zero. Who do I have on here? Let's see. Bigger Pockets is okay. Noah Kagan, it's all right.
Noah Kagan?
Yeah, he's like an entrepreneur. He's not that great of a speaker, and a lot of his stuff is short.
What's his podcast called?
Noah Kagan Presents, Kagan.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm looking at him. Look at his goofy $1 Million Weekend. Look at his goofball.
Yeah, some of these guys, I wish they didn't have a video component to it because he is a little goofy, but the audio version, I think, has a little less visual baggage. Because look at all this clickbait shit.
Yeah.
This isn't as bad as it looks, unfortunately.
Solid YouTube thumbnails, though. Pretty good thumbnails.
You know what's really good is Wandering DP.
Yeah, I think I might.
That is an excellent video podcast. Lighting breakdowns, equipment breakdowns, composition diagrams. Yeah, he's excellent. He's also really, really funny, in a very dry way that I appreciate.
I love it.
What else do I got? Oh man, Jim Rohn's on there. Jay Abraham.
Marketing. Jay Abraham.
I don't know how robust his YouTube stuff is now. It looks like it's a lot of recorded things that he's just kind of repopping, but
right.
He has an excellent way of articulating things that I think can sometimes get in the way of the message. Like, he's a guy that I'll have to rewind and re-listen to things, mostly because it goes over my head. But in terms of being able to pack as much information and into like a sentence, he is excellent. Yeah, Jay Abraham is excellent, but you kind of have to sift through a lot of.
Yeah, this seems great. 3-hour deep dive on marketing mastery. I'm in. That's cool.
Yeah. Let's see.
What about for more mindset stuff?
You know who isn't bad is the Rob Dyrdek stuff.
Yeah, he's sick, dude. Talking about the way he manages time and stuff was very interesting. Damn, right to the checkout page? Okay, the bummer on this guy, dude.
You got caught in that funnel.
More. Yeah,
right in that
for
funnel.
real though. That's wild. Funnels is another thing where I would tell people listening, if you're looking to get good at something that people will pay you for, building a funnel is fucking money.
And you know what? I'll say this: if you can speak, and I would tell this to kids that are in college, if you're going to take some bullshit classes, take acting 1 and acting 2, because if you're going to take some classes that don't matter, here's what happens in acting. Your professor is going to say, you guys are all getting A's, so just show up to class. Like, that's what's going to happen. He's not going to like give you less than a B, okay? But what will happen is you will get used to speaking in front of strangers, and more than likely people that you either want to date or be your friends, right? If you're in college. And that is like one of the most scary things you can do. But that is, in my limited experience and kind of like an outsider looking in, that's what separates people from being technical, like reaching technical mastery, but then not being able to excel in a managerial sense, right? Because you're going to get really good at something and you're going to be promoted, hopefully. And then you're going to get promoted into a position that you have no experience in, like managing people. Right.
Yeah.
And I see my wife going through it because she became a technical master at designing some of these drugs and then is trying to reach a director or VP level. Right. Well, how do you get experience doing that? Well, what happens is hopefully you get promoted into those positions, but more than likely they're not going to promote you because you become really good at doing something that's very hard, and they keep you keep you at a technical level. Right. So the bridge from here to here is being able to speak and present and tell stories, right? Because when you move from that technical level to a managerial or maybe like a consumer facing level where you're going to have to present about drug development, present to venture capitalists about something that maybe you're developing, and and kind of spinning the progress that you've made into something that looks like it's a good $100 million investment. That's the level that she's at, right? Because she can speak and advise about drug development, but when the slide deck goes away and then the venture capitalist calls her in a separate conversation and wants to know, like, is this legit? And she can't just regurgitate all the drug information. She has to speak to him like a salesman, in a very truthful and kind of projecting out a financial forecast for how this really works. Is this $20 million they want going to be enough, or is it really going to closer to 500 million? You know what I mean? I don't know what I mean, but I'm just saying, like, a person that can speak to someone or a group of people can make you millions of dollars in any industry, whether it's selling cars, boats, houses, drug development programs, a number of different things, right? You have to be able to build rapport with someone essentially immediately. And it's know, trust, buy in that order, right? So they have to get to know you, whether that's a referral or a cold introduction. And then you have to figure out a way to build trust or rapport with that person. And buying doesn't happen unless know and trust happen before that.
Yeah, big time. That's super valuable I remember, like, I don't remember much from college, but I took a public speaking class, and just pushing through that fear and getting up there and doing it has applied to so much shit in my life. It's amazing. And you're right about that being that's the difference maker. I'd rather have somebody on my team who I'm not going to be worried about him talking with the client versus somebody who's so good at color correcting but just can't speak. And
Yeah.
I think that's great general advice to give to people. Like no matter what you're doing, even if you're not selling, you're selling. Like you have to get good at sales, especially like a sponsored rider. You have to sell yourself. You know, if you're a fucking filmer, you got to sell your talent to a potential company. If you want to do it, it's sales matters.
You know what, dude? If you get nothing else from this podcast, you have amassed hours of speaking to someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On the fly, right? And so part of it is like improvisational in nature. Like that shoot I was on. I didn't realize it until I landed, but I was in store for like a 5-hour ride through a blizzard to get to our hotel because, it was like 10 inches of snow in like 5 hours, and they kept closing the pass. So I was like stuck in this car with this producer that I really didn't even know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
you did a 5-hour podcast with him.
it was a 5-hour podcast of me learning about her dog and her mom,
yeah.
and the guy, the 70-year-old guy that's trying to date her, and like she's awesome. She planned our shoot very, very well, but usually I don't talk to her at all in the shoots, right? Because she's already done the hard work. Like I'm talking with the creative director and the product line manager about the fit for the clothes. Like she's doing all the behind the scenes stuff,
Yeah.
And
but now you have a deeper relationship.
Yeah. Right. And she was talking about, changing jobs. And I was like, who am I to give someone advice in a career that I've never worked in? I mean, she's a producer. Like I produce things on a small level, but I don't truly know all the bullshit she goes through. But, I tried to do my best to be, real with her, and tell her, like I told her what I told you. Like, I think, public speaking and presenting and storytelling is a skill that transitions across all industries and across all economic backgrounds. Like I think it is the most democratized skill that anyone really has access to. And I think some people grow up in families where dialogue and discussion is more encouraged. You know what I mean? But it is certainly learnable through repetition. And I've never done Toastmasters, but Toastmasters is like, they have like local chapters in different cities, and you can like join, and it's part of it I think is like self-imposed torture to sign up for that, right? To because it's going to be extremely uncomfortable, but
I've heard about that. I've heard good things about Toastmasters.
Yeah.
For me personally, the learning how to speak was almost a forced thing. Like I was kind of quiet, but I remember kind of deciding I wanted to. It was like I recorded a how-to video with Cleon, and I was in front of the camera and I had to talk, and then I was like, oh shit, this is like you feel alive, It's wild. And then stand-up comedy, that was if you think stand-up comedy is stupid, you should try it, and then you'll respect the fuck out of any.
You did stand-up comedy?
Yeah, I did it for a year.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was thrilling, dude. Like one of the best feelings in life is my first time ever, because I did well. The whole place was laughing, and just that buzz, I carried that for a while. But then it's also the polar opposite. Like the second time I got up, so these are just like open mics at shitty local bars. The first time, I remember I wrote my 5 minutes on like a note card at Eric Ballman's house. I practiced it in the garage. I got up there, I did it. The jokes are bad, but they worked. And
because you're good at presenting, you're good at articulating and the inflection, right?
Yeah, there's so many little things.
Yeah.
But then, dude, the second night, same shit. I did the same shit, but it was like some comics that were there that night before and nobody else, basically, and it was just crickets. And I was like, this hurts, So then I fell into a pretty heavy drinking problem. It was a thrilling chapter of life. It's I don't know, it's a thrill. I want to go to an open mic again sometime. What's the most thrilling shit you've done?
When I did those Hunt videos, like Hunt video contests. So each year we had like a premiere at a theater or a movie theater, and I would get up on the mic and, address an entire industry full of people that were much cooler than me.
That's
and
real.
I was, yeah, dude. I mean, my legs were shaking, and I definitely, had, I probably had half a beer before that to mellow things out. But I mean, if you can get up in a room full of strangers, I mean, it's exhilarating,
Yeah.
I
The
the most,
hunt. I want to talk about that. So first of all, I want to say the shaking thing is so real. Like inside, it felt like I was going like this,
yeah,
but then you watch the video back and you look perfectly still, and it's like, what the fuck is that, dude? It's so crazy.
What would happen with me is my foot, kind of like from my knee down, it would start to shake, almost like I was tapping my heel, but
Yeah.
I couldn't control it. Like whatever anxiety was just kind of like channeled into there, and I like couldn't stop it. And I'd like look down at it, and you just couldn't get it to stop, Which, as you're trying to memorize, if you have this like monologue that you've memorized and these things you're going to say, and then you're like simultaneously like thinking about your foot, like it's a total, it's a total mind fuck,
Yeah. So
That's awesome.
I forget who. Hey, thanks. I recommend everybody try it. Because it doesn't matter. You go to a local bar, nobody gives a hell. The hunt, though. What if I was to? I want to do something like that. I was talking to, I think, Chadwick about it. What all did you have to do to make the hunt happen? Briefly, just like a skeleton of the shit.
So it was the Hunt video contest. It was like a global BMX contest for guys who were filming video parts but didn't have like a DVD for it to go into, because this was still like pre-web video. Like people put out web videos, but they really wanted to have their stuff land on like a DVD, so not everybody was part of like a pro team or had like a really solid crew that was putting out like feature length DVDs, but a lot of guys were like stacking footage. And so I wanted to create an opportunity for these guys to showcase the riding that they were doing at like such a high level, but have it be like a global contest where they could like be a part of a collection of other guys. But then also like I had budget to like pay them for things. Right. So it really just started, like, I thought it would be a cool idea, but Vans actually gave me a budget to be the sponsor for the video series, and that allowed me to like pay for guys' prizes and like rent the theater out and like duplicate the DVDs. And so they had like grassroots marketing budget to do that. Yeah. And then once Vans was on, I got Monster involved, and I think Skull Candy was on for 1 year, and then Odyssey. So it was like,
what kind of budget are we talking about here? These are big companies. Like, what did Vans throw down for the
hunt? Yeah, like maybe 20. I mean, it's probably like $50,000-$60,000 I had to work with
total.
Yeah. So like Vans 20, Monster 20, and then like maybe Skull Candy like 5 in product, and then Odyssey like 5 in product. And
how does that happen? Are you sending an email with the idea?
Yeah, like a proposal. So yeah. I was an English major in college, so it's not fun to write proposals, but it's fairly easy for me to whip them together in terms of just like storytelling and outline deliverables, just like
what's in it for them, and
like your title sponsor, this is what you get, you're going to appear on all this stuff. And it was sort of pre-Instagram too, so I didn't have to do a lot. I think the last one that I did 3 of them. The last one, Instagram was out, but it doesn't matter. But so basically like I invited these guys that I knew were like shredders and told them, I was like, hey, I'd like you to make a video part for this DVD. And we have all these like other like big time pros like Gary Young and Aaron Ross and like Jamie Bestwick. Like that was a part of it. So I had like Vans and Monster, like their pros were like the judges, so that was like an integration of their, like an activation for their athletes.
Did you put that in the proposal? I'm curious. And did you call it an activation in the proposal?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
But, it was like, part of the value is like these guys were going to guarantee that like these pros were going to watch their video parts, you know what I mean? So it's just like, how do I create value for this person who lives like in a state that doesn't really have a scene, but they're really, really good. Like, how do I make them part of the community? Right. And then how do I how do I like make a side hustle that can make me a little bit of profit too with the time I have, right? Because it wasn't super intense time commitment until the end when I had to like produce the premiere and like do all the DVDs, author the DVDs and get those distributed and everything. But it was pretty cool how it all went down. So like, you know, I invited guys and like some guys that I knew had been filming but didn't have like a, you know, didn't have footage, or like maybe they're like were changing sponsors, so they had a bunch of old footage, you know, that they couldn't use for like their next frame sponsor. So yeah, they all like submitted their video parts, and then like I put them all on private Vimeo accounts, and then I had like our judges watch them all and then rank them, and then that's how I mastered the DVD. I mastered it in order of like 10-1, and so at the premiere, like as you're watching the DVD, you're realizing like who got 10th, 9th, you know what I mean?
Yeah, cool.
Like as people's names came on the screen, like those people like were in the audience, and they usually like drove there with like their homies, and they're like so fucking stoked that because they like didn't know that they even made like the DVD, you know, like they didn't know shit, right? But they were just stoked to have that like experience of them. I mean, all these guys are riding at a fucking like pro level. It's just like they're not sponsored, you know? So the riding was just like insane. So that was pretty badass. And then, you know, like we had like cash prizes and, you know, like $5,000, I think 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then like, I think I had like a trip to Barcelona too. I think Dylan Lloyd won that one. And he was like, oh, here's my trip. I want to fly from Vancouver to Paris and then Paris to this place. He like had all these stops.
Yeah.
But he was like a month long. I was like, no, dude, it's just to Barcelona. Like, like this is like real expensive. You know what I mean? He like created and I was like, this fucking guy.
I like that. He's getting the most out of it.
But I think Vans was on the hook for that one. And I was like hoping someone from Australia did, because it was like a cap. It was like, I don't know what it was. It was like $5,000 for the whole trip. And I was like hoping someone from Australia didn't win, because then I was going to have to pay for it like out of my own pocket because it's so expensive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it was cool. I did like 3 years of it. I mean, you know, I ran into like some annoying stuff that just sort of happens where like, you know, it's a couple weeks out and one of the guys filming like, you know, is like totally out of money and I had to like send him money. So like typical team manager stuff kind of happened.
Right.
But
did you pay for Drew Hostleton's trip to Europe for that video?
I don't know. I feel like it was Dylan Lloyd. It was the one I remember because he's trying to like game the system.
But do you remember Drew? I don't know, Drew Hostleton, The Hunt. I wonder if this is on.
Did he? Was he in it?
Yeah. Drew Hostleton, The Hunt. So he was in Barcelona, I think, for this tattoo. No, Scotland. Because that's Chris Kyle back there. But yeah, he went to Europe for this, to film this. So I don't remember all the details, but I love this footprint wall right here though. Sheesh, that's steep. I was just at that spot the other day, and I miss Drew's riding, dude.
So does he live in Alaska?
Yeah. He's literally he's doing what's that book, Into the Wild. He just was like, all right, bye, Robert. And then he's living in Alaska. He's got a little homestead. He's got a big garden, and just a low-key life. He's living his dream.
Jeez.
Stoked for him. I don't necessarily want that life yet, but it's like the ideal world. Hey, I filmed that. But yeah.
San Francisco.
I always sweated this part. This is pretty good stuff, I tell you. This was early on, the Ice 180 to Indian, or 180 Ice to Indian.
Jeez,
it's great.
I tell you what, he's such a unique dude, and I could say that about so many guys that I've met, and that was like the one gift that BMX industry gave me. It was like I got to meet so many people at like a time in their lives when they were like so passionate, like they were incredibly passionate about that one thing, and they were like, they're young, they're healthy, and they just like had some, you know, they were like sponsored and they were just like doing what they thought, like what they wanted to be as like a kid, you know, it's like, I want to be a BMX pro. And then they're fucking BMX pros, like jumping off roofs, like doing crazy shit down handrails. Like it was an energy that like I will never experience that again in neither quality or quantity. I don't know how I could. You know what I mean? Like when am I going to work with people that are like basically 17 to 25 years old in the peak of their like athletic career and get to like do creative things with them every single day? Like fucking crazy. And yeah, some of these dudes are like wackos. I'm not saying
cuckoos,
but like you like, yeah.
Big time. When you think about all the trips that you've been on, if you could relive one BMX trip off the top of your head right now, would it be Edwin and Tom White in Phoenix?
No, it would not. No, it would not be that one. Man, we did Korea, Malaysia, Singapore. Well, we did like a week or 2 weeks in Australia for Vans Pro Cup. And then we did Korea, Malaysia, Singapore after that. And I was gone. I think I was gone a month or maybe like 3 weeks or something. And that was pretty awesome. I mean, it was like, it wasn't that serious of a filming trip. It was kind of like half autograph signings. And then we did make a video out of it called Dragon Tour. Yeah, look at that up. Vans BMX Dragon Tour, maybe. That was a fun one. Creatively, like it was fun to film, but it wasn't really like a ton of pressure. But we like stayed at really nice. We like stayed at really nice places.
Hell yeah! Good. That seems like a very low pressure trip.
But it was like so graphic. Like everything culturally around us was like so sick. Like look at all this stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Damn squad too. Holy shit.
Yeah, big squad.
Fuck yeah. Yeah, let's watch this. So on this trip, just as an example, you're pretty much solo media guy. You're doing photo and
no. Calvin was definitely filming.
Oh yeah,
this.
Calvin.
Yeah,
obviously.
Yeah, once he kind of came into the scene, I was like, bring him on everything.
Yeah, he's valuable as fuck.
Double angles, like I don't have to worry about. I think Jeff Z might have shot photos on this. I feel like he. Yeah,
I remember this video. It's been a minute, but I do remember this.
Oh, you know what? We did a Perth one that was really, really fun too. It was just Dakota, Calvin, me. No. Sorry, start over. It was just Dakota, and it was Will Stroud, and then like Ben from BMX Plus. And Dak was like, "Oh man, what if I get hurt? This whole trip is gonna be a waste." And like he didn't get hurt or anything, but like,
yeah, you're putting all your eggs in one basket.
It was like for a shoe promo, and anyway, it was a fun one to film. Yeah, that Perth one with Dak was cool. Yeah, so like Calvin probably did all this fisheye. I was like, dude, fuck filming all this stuff fisheye. Like, I'm not trying to break my hand again.
You're just traumatized from breaking your hand in Australia, dude. You poor guy. Fucking A. I think filming a fisheye line really well has got to be one of my favorite feelings in filming BMX. It's the shit. But Chadwick disagrees. He thinks it's if you nail a good long lens shot, it feels good, which it is 100% all just subjective. But it's interesting to hear. We did a would you rather film fish or long? I think you just answered that.
But. Oh yeah, long for sure. I mean, I think the like just the long lens, like the parallaxing stuff, it just is such a.
Oh, that was nice, Sean. God damn.
It's like
Curvada tapes.
Yeah, all this stuff was like it's just so cool to be at.
Yeah, this looks
downtown.
Incredible.
Yeah. But it was, I mean, also like this trip was cool because it wasn't just like all on my shoulders, you know, like I actually had like another guy with me and I didn't have to do everything, you know, and I could like focus on getting like a cool B-roll shot, you know, that would like help tell the story
right
too. And that was like, Dude, Calvin definitely filmed all these fish lines. Thank God.
B-roll can be underappreciated. Like I went through a phase where I was like, "Fuck B-roll," but if it's done right, it really does add a whole lot, and it's easy to shit on. But B-roll's an art. What was I gonna ask? So like a project like this with Vans, your relationship was like you're on a retainer model. What does that?
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like if I wanted to just go and apply to find somebody to put me on retainer, what what does my email say? Like what are the details? Do they get hashed out after?
So it was like I shot a couple photos for them, and I maybe sold a couple ads, a couple photos for like $3,000 each, and I think the photo buyer there was like, well, shit, like if you're doing all this stuff, like, do you want to just be on retainer? Because she was probably thinking like, okay, well, we could pay him like $5,000 a month, and it'd be cheaper than 6 because we just bought 2 photos from him,
Yeah.
So that's really like how it came about. I think like
is that how all of your retainers have been, where it's like you have an existing relationship and you're just kind of like, let's go ahead and commit to each other?
No, like the GT Mcgoo Schwinn thing that came through Mcgoo. Mm-hmm. That was kind of through him. He kind of told me, he's like, hey, we're gonna pay you, we're gonna pay you like $5,000 a month, and you just do all this stuff. And I was like, good, okay, like
yeah.
I was like, that is, that's a lot of money. We're gonna do that. Yeah. Yeah, really, I had a retainer at Vans, and I had the GT Mcgoo Schwinn thing. Like I said, the Vans thing was like, I had like a 1-year deal, and then they signed me for like a bunch of 2-year contracts. And then I had a single year. And then, so it kind of went back and forth depending on like what their budget was like, or like if they were signing athletes for like 2 or 3 year deals, they signed me for the same. Cause my contract was an athlete contract, like all of it. It all said,
interesting. Yeah.
It's just cause he didn't want to like make up a new one, I guess.
Yeah. You will wear your helmet when filming at all times.
Yeah. But yeah, I think Red Bull, like I had talked to my communications like buyer at Red Bull, and I think she was like, oh, you wouldn't want to be on retainer, would you? She's like, you probably wouldn't make as much. And I was like, yeah, well then I think I don't want to be on retainer then.
Yeah.
Because they had some guys on retainer, but I think they had to they flew them around, do like a lot of shit that they didn't want to shoot,
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it can be good and bad. Like it just like part of the problem is like if they've never done a retainer before, like if they've never had a retainer relationship, then they don't really know how quickly it can evolve when you're doing work for them, and then they can also like the scope of work can expand pretty quickly. Like I see it happen with just projects that I create myself, you know what I mean? Where it's like you hopefully you have a clear set of roles, responsibilities, and budget, but then like, I mean, so many things happen during the course of a production, let alone
shit evolves.
A retainer, so like one thing that can happen that you just got to be careful, like if you have like a retainer that you don't get handed off to like another division, you know what I mean? So like at Vans, it worked out really, really well because Vans owned ProTech helmets, but my deal was only with Vans. And so when ProTech would like hire me to do like a photo shoot or a catalog shoot, it was on top of my contract with the BMX team, which is rad,
That is rad.
And they could have very easily tried to leverage that into, oh, you do all this shit for free now, kind of blurring the lines between like a contractor and a full-time employee, but they didn't. So that was pretty good. And as you can imagine, if you're doing some simple math, I was making pretty good money for quite a few years in the BMX world.
Yeah.
And those aren't even, I mean, that doesn't even include like any of the motorsports stuff I was doing too. So I certainly feel like I was like maybe one of the luckier guys that worked in BMX media that came after Keith Mulligan and Mark Losey. You know what I mean? The guys that ran those magazines. And I think Losey ran Vital BMX for a while too. But I was just like the right place at the right time, and I was just like super available at a time where these guys that were 10 years older than me were kind of like switching gears or phasing out,
Yeah. Besides luck, what do you think it is about you that allowed you to kind of find that much success within BMX?
Um, like I'm not really like an asshole until you get to know me, know me. But I don't know. I don't I don't know. I'd say I'm kind of like a nerd. Like I don't really try to cool guy anybody. And maybe it's just like, I think that I'm kind of a nerd,
You are a
but,
nerd, yeah.
but I wasn't like too cool for school. You know what I mean? And I think some guys are, but they don't realize how that comes across to other people, you know?
Yep, I could see that.
And it can be kind of a turn off.
So in essence, you're talking about just having good relationships and not cool guying anybody and being kind of open, friends with everybody.
Yeah, and just being able to talk in a lot of different rooms too. Like when I was in like I like when I was in college, I did a couple like what were they? I don't even know what you call them. It was like a grant program, and you could like write your own class. And so I wrote like 2 photo projects. Like I never took a photo class in college until my senior year, but I wrote a couple independent studies. That's what they would be. So essentially, it was like I had to create a budget and a curriculum for myself for a project that I wanted to do that my school didn't offer. And my school was really small, so they like didn't really offer anything in sports or like unique photography or anything. So I kind of parlayed it into some journalism shit, and I pitched my school on paying for me to shoot actually spring training out in Phoenix for like the White Sox. So that was probably 2001.
Yeah.
Over spring break. And then another one, like they paid me to go, like they gave me a budget to go shoot like a BMX race in Las Vegas that I actually raced myself too.
No shit. Well,
but
that right there, that's the answer. Like, I think you're just glossing over it because you take it for granted as part of you, but the willingness to pitch, to like something doesn't exist, but the idea is in your head, and then doing what you need to do to make it happen, like sending an email or reaching out to people and pitching them the idea. I think that's something that a lot of people just aren't willing to do, and that's something that sets you apart.
You know, it's like why are people why are people afraid to do that? Well, it could be a couple reasons, right? Like fear of rejection. Okay, well that's normal. But they also might not think what they think is cool that someone else will think is cool, right? But you don't know unless you bring that up to some person. And I kind of found this out at Vans. Like if I wanted to go do a project and I could make it seem cool to my boss, he would just like email it to his boss and be like, hey, we're going to do this. And I don't care that he made it seem like was his idea. If I get to do the shoot that I want to do, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like every Monday morning they had meetings. I didn't go to the meetings, but it was like a marketing recap, you know, like what happened this week with your athletes or what are you planning for? And so if I just created something that was unique for him to talk about in the meeting, like he would just pay for us to go do it. You know, like a good example of that would be like Matthias Dandois and I went to my friend's school in Kansas, in like rural Kansas. He lives in an old high school he bought. And we had done some photo shoots there before, but I was like, I just wanted to go back there. And I was like, we haven't shot with Matthias in a while. So Matthias flew out. We just drove around Kansas in the back roads and shot all this like cool flatland, different places. And like, I think we kind of like wrapped it in the idea of like back to school because it was like all shot in this old school. So we got some apparel and backpacks. I don't think it ever really came out in some big place, to be perfectly honest, but it was just fun. Like I got to shoot like, dude, that was shot there. And the next one that was shot there. The next one that was shot there. Like that one. Yeah. Dude, these are some of my favorite photos. Yeah. Look at this stuff. Dude's a freaking model.
Yeah. He's a handsome bastard.
But like
super talented. Holy shit.
Yeah, man. It was so fun to go shoot stuff like that. And I realized it's like, it's not easy to put yourself in someone else's shoes, but just try it. Like, and try and think of like what could be valuable for them that would align with something that you need as well. You know what I mean? And that sounds like, I don't know, that sounds kind of like generic, but it's just like you want to give them something other than like an expense. You know what I mean? Like marketing is just all fucking expenses. You know what I mean? The first department to get cut is marketing spending. So like if you can create something that's interesting or like almost completely buttoned up that the person footing the bill doesn't have to lift a finger and they can like take credit for it and show it to their boss, like that's value. You know what I mean? Like you're making their job easier. And dude, you'd be surprised how much of a pain in the ass it is to spend marketing budgets sometimes. Like I realized this when I would hear Jerry talk about the budgets he would have at Vans. Like if he had $500,000, that sounds like a lot, but the easiest thing for him to do was to like spend it all on like a skate park series because he knew each stop was going to cost like $100,000. You know what I mean? But if you're doing like BMX projects and you have, you're spending like $5,000 on a BMX project and that's like 100 BMX projects that you have to fucking plan and pay for and deal with all the bullshit. Fuck that. If you could write one check and do, you know what I mean? Like, but that's like what's valuable to him, right?
Yeah.
So if you can create something that's so big that it's easy for him to write one check and then he has like producers that create, that's not how it is anymore. I mean, he doesn't work there anymore, but like,
but just in general, like, so it is somebody's job to spend that marketing budget and you're making their job easier by doing an expensive.
That's cool to think about. You see like commercials on, TV on terrestrial TV and you're like, God, like this is so whack. Like why did, they could have spent it a different way, but it's also like easy to do that. It's like easy to write like, okay, it's going to cost a couple $1,000,000 to run an ad like during the playoffs or something, but we're guaranteed these metrics and it's easier for me to do that than to try and do 20 different smaller things. You know what I mean? So I see it from their side, right? And if I can be like a small solution to that, like I haven't done anything like that in a while, but I also am very, very prompt when I put together quotes. I line item everything so there's not really a lot of other questions, you know what I mean, that come with the quote. I spell it out. Like I basically try to create budgets and projects that only need like a green light. They don't create a bunch of extra questions. That's what I try to tell a lot of people that like are pitching. Like you don't want to email someone and say, hey, what do you want to see? Like they're not going to fucking respond. And really all you're doing is like creating a pain in the ass for them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like unless you're like Annie Leibovitz or you're some like celebrity content creator and it's like a blessing that you're reaching out to this person, right? Like we aren't that person, right? So we have to have something that's so buttoned up and has the deliverables very specifically listed and strategy involved and timelines and all that stuff. So that stuff's a pain in the ass to do, but that's what people that are in-house live and die by. They live and die by schedules and dollars and when things need to be spent by. So if you can be a solution to that funny problem of how do I spend this money, it can create a lot of opportunities for you to shoot like portfolio projects like I did. You know?
The generic wisdom in that is just finding alignment between like your vision and what somebody else wants. The person who has the power to make what you want come true, find out how your vision aligns with them and fucking I'm trying to think of it in terms of like just on a smaller scale, like maybe pitching a jam or something to if I'm listening to this and I wanted to apply something like this and just go pitch something for the sake of it. Like you could host a local jam and reach out to bike companies with a detailed thing. Like we're going to have X amount of people at this location and I'm planning on doing this where we're going to give away blah, blah, blah. And instead of just being like, hey, will you can send me some stuff for a jam? Like give details to where them giving stuff for that jam makes sense for them.
Yeah. Like let's finish that for them. So like, I would say, okay, we're going to have like a parking cone but where I'm going to put your stickers all over the fucking thing. And we're going to have a bunny hop contest over the parking cone, or we're going to have a long jump contest over these orange cones that are covered in all your stickers, and then like someone's going to be shooting photos and then I'm going to send you those photos to put on Instagram. You know what I mean? And so like you're creating value for the brand. You're creating like you're bringing
earned media
store. Yeah. There you go. Earned media. Yeah.
Yep. I love it.
Yeah.
So if you're listening and you're 3 hours deep, you better go host a jam. Can you believe we just went for 3 hours?
Sure, I can.
Yeah,
Sure,
man,
I can.
it's actually it's super nice to talk to you. I remembered halfway through. I was like, oh yeah, you're my mentor. I remember in business management school, they had me reach out to somebody in my field and become a or find a mentor was the assignment. And I found you. I said, Kosman, will you be my mentor? And you said, yeah, sure, Kanode, I'll be your mentor. Then I maybe
Cool.
talked to you once or twice. I did not use you, but just in spirit, you're there, man.
You know what? I can we rewind real quick to
Yeah,
the stand up? Can I just get
yeah.
one joke? I don't it just
Uh, uh,
anything.
I did it. My first ever bit was about me. It was meta. It was about me writing my jokes and talking shit. I had one where I literally laid out a roast battle that I had with myself in the mirror. I was like, "You fat piece of shit," and it's just like some relatively funny things, like you only have this to compensate for this. And no, I couldn't tell you a single joke. But one of the punchlines was like, I was in a I was talking to my roommate about the fact that I was going to go do stand up, and then the punchline was that we were in the bubble bath together, and it's just like what the fuck. The thinking back, if you gave me my joke and wrote it out and you said go perform this, I would punch you. Like, please don't make me do
Don't
this.
make me
You
do
know?
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, I can't remember shit. It's all blurry. But I do on my. I think I kept an old phone that has the voice recordings because I would just get drunk, and then lay in my bed and think of something, and then I would say it, and then 9 times out of 10 I would wake up and be like, "That's horrible." But there was one or two one time where I was like, "Okay, that's kind of funny. I'll keep it going." The
There.
writing process for that is difficult. It's
Oh, I
not easy.
bet. Yeah, I've never tried to write in that medium before. You know, I actually really enjoyed writing poetry because it was so hard. It was so hard to shave down your idea into something so short that was like the challenge for me, and it would really like would really make you think about like what am I trying to say, and what impact am I trying to have, or what emotion am I trying to elicit, you know? And so, you know,
That's a
stand-up
huge
comedy
factor.
is
Economy of
poetry for
words.
sure. I
Yeah.
mean, it is absolutely poetry with a physical element to it as
Yeah.
well. You know what I mean? And a cadence. I think
Yep.
is cadence. Cadence is art in itself.
Like
Mcgoo,
Louis C.K. for example, like it seems like he's just coming up with it on the spot, but it's everything is so calculated from the pause
yeah,
in between words to when he holds his belt buckle or when he taps his belly to illustrate something and which he says and the
dude,
face. It's
that is
crazy.
pure genius when you're watching guys do that, and you're like, fuck, that wouldn't be funny unless the pause was there,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
or the pause is what's funny. Like it is pure genius. You know, Mcgoo. I don't know like I don't know what you know about Mcgoo. Like he
I don't
ran
know
Stand
shit. I need to
Mcgoo.
listen to Unclicked because he was on there.
So he like I spent so much time with him, and he speaks so fast, and he had such a wealth of knowledge, going back to like the 80s of how like all the companies he worked for. But like I learned, like I still repeat some things that he says at photo shoots all the time. Like he would say, you know, he would just say like, "Oh, don't tempt me with a good time." Like he would just say stuff like that out of context about so many things that would like if you didn't have anything to say, if you could say, you would say that, and the person would kind of think it was funny, but they'd be confused about what to say. But like I just saw him say so much random but calculated things that he just had like queued up in his dialect that was so funny.
I like
um,
that. I wish I had more of those. Those
Dude,
little.
he was an incredible mentor for me. I mean, uh, I I had dinner with him last year. You know, no, I saw him. He had that built well. He did like a built well product show at the Del Mar Fairgrounds, and I got to hang out with him for like an hour and just like shoot the shit with him for an hour, while there was like a fucking trade show going on. Like I feel so lucky that he like basically
That's pretty
ignored all
rad.
these people that were here to see him.
Yeah, who was I talking to about him? I was talking to Steve Courteau, and he said that after he listened to that Magoo one, he was like, "Holy shit, this guy's like, it's a shame that we kind of everybody talks shit on Snafu back in the day. Like he was like not taken seriously, or I don't know exactly what it was, but I don't think he was given his fair shake. Like people hated on him too much for fucking no. Because I remember being like 16, 17, 18 and hearing just like Mcgoo's a loser, like that type shit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know anything, but like, that sucks, especially knowing that he's a certified gangsta.
He's so like another thing would say he's forgotten more business deals than I'll do. Like he'll say shit like that,
Yeah.
And
like
he's
that.
he's not lying. Like, I fired more people than you'll ever hire, like just, and he's not,
he ain't lying.
dude. He took me on, they do that Biltwell El Diablo trip. It's like a motorcycle ride down to like Rosarito or San Felipe. Oh my God. Talk about debauchery, man. I was like, dude, I saw some shit that I will never forget. Some disgusting things with
You went to a good old donkey show.
chopper culture.
Yeah, those biker boys are different. They're built different.
But man, like I definitely had mentors that you kind of don't know at the time that are mentors, and then you look back and you're like, damn, that dude went out of his way to be like really cool to me, and like he definitely didn't need to, like, and sometimes it's someone that's just like giving you some real talk that you really, really need, or it's someone that is like realizes that you really, really give a shit about something, whether it be like bikes or photography, and they're like, okay, I'm only doing this because you look like you really like this,
Yeah.
And I've had so many people throughout the years that have gone out of their way to help me or to entertain like my questions about things that were not totally related to what we were doing, but that kind of reflected on their personal like their area of expertise, I would say.
Fuck yeah. And
yeah.
I think you subconsciously or maybe consciously just paid it forward. Like with me, for example, I'm sure there's plenty others of people that you've helped, but it almost comes natural when you see how much of an impact people's help on you it can be, and then when you're in the position to help, like you're gonna do it. Especially like you said, for somebody who's passionate.
You know what? Like it's really not until I have to talk about it a lot of times that I am able to like articulate maybe like how impactful some things were, or having to like talk about things in hindsight really gives me an opportunity selfishly to like think about, how I approach things or what things were super valuable to me. Cause you really don't, like, you're just kind of like, why would I ever talk about shit like this out loud? You know what I mean? Like I never would unless like you asked me to, but like, I think the stuff that we talked about is like, it's as important as you want it to be. Right. But I think it's like, it was super important in my life, like things that, changed the course of my life and things that I would do over. And yeah.
Makes me wonder where you're headed to next. What's your big fat goal right now?
I admittedly am kind of I don't know. I would like to find a photo rep. I would like to get an agent and try to attack some projects that are much bigger than what I've been doing. And I don't think it's artistically out of the realm of what I've done before. But I think that is going to be me stepping out of my comfort zone and cold calling and cold connecting with some people. And that'll do me some good. You know what I mean? Like, we know each other. We're not super close, but I certainly wouldn't have been able to do this with someone that I was a total stranger, like that was a stranger, right? Like we have a history, we have rapport.
Yeah.
But like I would like to be doing some really, really big photo shoots, maybe 3-4 times a year. I'm using it as an excuse, but my wife is like freelancing right now and she's doing really well, but she also might get a full-time job again. So I'm kind of waiting to see what she locks into. We're not going to move, but I would like to get get her in someplace that she can really sink her teeth into before I do that. Because I'll tell you one thing that wasn't great for relationships was traveling for months on end.
Yeah.
Right. So not only was I dating people that were kind of the same person over and over, it didn't really help that I was gone for like 2 weeks at a time out of every fucking month for like 15 years.
Yeah.
So I think I don't want to do as much of that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, is if I can do a few more intricate photo shoots with a lot more pre-production, but only do like, maybe 4 or 5 of them a year, that'll kind of help me get some bigger projects under my belt, but also not have to be traveling constantly like I did, back in the day.
Yeah. So it's funny how travel works. Like you're stoked on it, and then once you're in it and you're doing it, you're like, fuck, But those are good. That's a good goal. Good professional goal.
About you, you tell me what the fuck you got going on. What are you going to be doing in a year?
So, I've been exclusively with Jamil for 2 years, just on salary, and increasing every responsibility you could possibly ask for, with social media, filming, editing, managing, directing photos, the email and text marketing also in there.
Wow.
So I think there's a somewhat of a runway of that dynamic ending in the next 90 days. And I think my big goal right now that I'm excited about is bringing on 4, 5, 6 clients that pay me $3,000, $4,000 a month to have a shooting day and post on their social media for the month, whether it's 20 or 30 posts. But I think that is the goal right now. I'm actually bringing on my first client, having a conversation with him tomorrow while I'm still working for Jamil to like feel it out and like do my research on like because he has another one that he wants to replace with me. So I need to figure out like, what are they offering? What are they charging? What can I do? And how can I make it better? But I think I have the business owner inside of me. I have too much of an ego to like dedicate my life to somebody else's shit, and it's way more exciting. I love that's so thrilling to talk to a new client and like put myself in their shoes and do the talking part and figure out how to make them better and what would be most valuable to them, and just that shit excites me. So I could see myself maybe scaling, but at the very minimum just doing like five clients and doing it well, and then having so much more freedom. Like right now, it's been 2 years, and I've had 10 official days off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and the rest of the time, it's not like I'm busting my ass all day, but the days where it's like I'm on vacation, but I still have to think about what I'm posting and all this shit. It just
So you're full-time employee with Jamil?
Yeah.
Okay, wow.
More than full. It's
But it's not like a retainer, like you're on like.
No, it's a salary.
Yeah.
Salary. So I love it. I learned a lot, and it's been the comfort of a nice salary is fantastic, but it's getting to a boiling point for sure. And I think he knows this. We've had this conversation, but yeah, you know what I'm saying? And
you're going to go through
it's so
like
scary.
What's scary?
It's so scary. Just the being on your own, and whatever comes in, and whatever, it's not like that's not repeating every 2 weeks,
Yeah, I'll tell you what the biggest problem you're going to have is you're going to reach your goal too quickly, and it's going to be a good problem to have, but you're going to wish that maybe you thought 5x of what you're thinking. I'm not saying you should, but that's where I found myself. Is the stuff that I thought I wanted to do, you will find yourself there quicker than you thought, and it won't be a whole lot different than you, I guess, were before. Like you'll go through these times where like you'll make a lot of money, but you're not learning. And then you'll go through these times where you're like learning a lot, but you're not making as much money. So it's like, you almost got to go through these learning phases. Like I think like you did the last 2 years. And then you go through like a leverage phase where like, okay, now you take what you learned and you try to like scale it up in a different way, or like take it to industry, and it's like, they very rarely happen at the same time. Like you're very rarely going to get paid really well and have an environment where like you have a mentor. You know what I mean? Like usually the times where I had like really, really high learning trajectory, I wasn't really making a lot of money, making as much money in that situation. But then I was able to like take that and apply it to like a new project, or like take that knowledge moving forward. And then it like took me to like a higher level in another place, you know?
So when you say that, what pops into your head? I describe my vision for my little company. What is 5X that? Just more clients and building the actual
I would say like,
of it?
and this is easier said than done, but like, you know, maybe try to focus on a bigger, like same offering, but like a bigger fish, you know what I mean? And
so a more expensive, better, more boutique. I don't know
like,
if boutique is the right word, but more
like
customized or something.
like less
instead
pacing.
of saying $3,000 for 30 posts, say 10 grand for 10 posts.
Yeah.
That type shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be cool.
It's gonna be a lot of work either way. You know what I mean? It's not like you're gonna swing. I don't know. Also, I think like working with like businesses that are a little bit bigger that don't have the person's name, you know, you're not like working with the owner, because like those buyers always look at the money like it's their own money. And maybe Pace and Jamil don't, but I just feel like working with like small businesses where you're dealing with the owner, they always feel like they're spending their own money, and they have like this weird emotional attachment to like a lot of the creative and the way the budgets are spent. And like the bigger brands, like they have a clear vision of what they want to do, and it's like clear throughout the organization, and they're able to make decisions better because they're not like thinking that like, okay, that money we're spending is like how much I would spend on college for my kid, right? Because it's not their money, you know what I mean? And I don't know if that's
it's like a level of detachment that's valuable.
Yeah,
to
like
the person vying for that money.
Yeah, and there's a little bit of separation, like an emotional separation, with how the money's being spent. So, but those are all
of a type of company out here that I could maybe an industry or a fucking something.
Well, I would say focus in your area of competence, right? So if you've spent this much time with like Pace and Jamil, I would say you're definitely going to still have your feet in the real estate world, right? Whether it's the education side or it's actually like, I mean, fuck, man, you might as you got a front row seat to all their IP. Like you might as well be doing the gator shit. But I mean, another thing to think about is like, you know, because I think about this too. It's like, okay, do I want to be doing this in 20 years? It's like, no, I want to have like 3 houses that I'm like renting out to people. So like, why don't I start that now instead of starting it in 20 years, you know?
That is the end game for sure. Just have passive income from real estate.
Yeah.
You're chilling. That's your retirement right there.
Yeah.
That's on the goal list for me as well.
It's a what?
It's on the goal list for me as well to get a deal done.
I mean, I'd say if like you had, I don't know how you would track these down, but kind of like brands that are like kind of $5 million and less, like gross income, I don't know, big enough to spend money, but not so big that they're gonna like want to work with like a huge agency that has like a brick and mortar presence, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would almost look at some agencies that are in Phoenix, and then just see like what clients that they have, and then just like try to target some like smaller competitors to them. You know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, that's like strategic in a way that I haven't necessarily done that, but I mean, all that stuff is like probably fairly easy to find, you know what I mean? If you just start looking, cause like,
if I was going to look for agencies here, what do I type? Marketing agency?
Like marketing agency or social media agency, Phoenix, or, you know, production company. A lot of the smaller ones they'll be like creative agency and production agency. So it's like someone like you or me who started, or who was like a content, like a producer, like a photo or video guy. Mm-hmm. And then they they kind of like branched into doing like creative work and like strategy, pretty much like what you're doing, except they maybe have some like employees, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I saw my friends do it in Irvine. My friends that run this agency called The Forge. I mean, they're just like 3 video guys that had enough clients to put it together and tried to like create a unique offering beyond just content, like creating websites and like content strategy. And then they hired like a creative director that didn't do what they did, but he kind of complemented what they did. Yeah, I don't know. I would say, and you know, I pace and tell you the same thing. If you've never done cold outreach and it seems scary, you'd be surprised at your hit rate, right?
Yeah, especially in something that I have talent in or experience in. Like I just cold called for an hour and a half the other day for real estate. Just like, is this John? Are you looking to sell your house in the next 90 days? And just fucking miserable for 90 minutes. But it's like exciting and thrilling to do it for something that I feel like I'm not a fucking nobody in, you know?
Yeah.
Jolly good fun.
Yeah. I mean, I would, that's the thing that no one wants to do, right? And that's the thing that is, there's no other way you're going to get, that you're going to get in front of those people, you know? Like I was lucky enough that like I did this creative work for Vans, and then like I was able to kind of leverage the work. I was able to kind of like advertise with the work I did for them and be like, hey, look what I did. You know what I mean? But that's like what we talked about doing case studies. You know what I mean? Like you've done enough work for Jamil that you could put together like basically all these different one sheets of like, here's a project I did. Here was the concept. Here's the execution. And we could do it for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, how else are you going to do it? Right. They're either going to like, they want to know someone has trusted you before and that you've done this already. Yeah. And that's like how I found myself getting hired for things that I have no business doing, is because they looked at my portfolio and they've been like, oh, so Red Bull trusted you to do something that's like way more creative than what we're asking you to do. Well, then great. This should be easy for you. You know what I mean? Like they want to know that they're contracting with someone who has like basically been validated by like a much bigger company, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not that's true or to what extent that is true, like that's a story that they want to tell themselves, right? That they have a dude that can handle something like really kind of crazy, and we're just going to shoot golf clubs. So how bad could it be, right?
Yeah,
you know,
for real.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Well, we can't end it until I ask you who's your Mount Rushmore. Who's your Mount Rushmore of photographers and of BMX riders?
Let's see. Gary Young, Dakota, Jason Watts. Is there one more?
Yeah, one more.
And I'm gonna put Brad Sims on there because I just did a Brad Sims impression this week.
What does a Brad Sims impression look like?
Jay Kaz, what do you think? What you think we're gonna be buying when we hit a big dog? A G-Wagon? Maybe a Range Rover? Maybe you put you in a white Range Rover, you know, like something a chick would drive, you know? I was so stoked. That's not how he sounds, but he definitely said funny shit to me like that all the time, and I loved it. Yeah, I was so stoked to see him get on Adidas.
Yeah, well deserved.
It was a long time coming for him, and I love seeing people not give up on shit. So however long that lasts, none of it lasts very long, but I hope he's having fun because he wanted to be balling out, and
he balling out, dude. Yeah. He showed up to my house. He came to do the podcast, and he rented a Porsche. He showed up. He pulled up in his Porsche, and I was just like, "Holy shit, Brad Sims at my fucking house! This is crazy!" And a fucking all electric Porsche. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Shout out Brad Sims.
Good for
photographers.
Photographers. Let's see. Let's say Morgan Meredith. He was a photographer at a skiing and mountain biking publisher that I worked at. And he doesn't shoot anymore, but he was like an assistant editor at Bike Magazine and Powder Magazine, and he ended up working for like SRAM in Santa Cruz. But like he was a real big inspiration to me. Oh, cool. He's got a little bit of photo on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah. And then
I
I'd
love his
say
website. It's called A Collection of Most of the Work That I Have Done.com. It's so good.
Yeah, he's rad. Let's see. And then Steve Woltman. I mean, he was my mentor in college. So when I met the first professional photographer that I really met, yeah, that's him right there. He worked for my school. And so he works for a bunch of Division I colleges in Chicago, and he works for like all the baseball card companies. And this is who let me borrow his gear and taught me how to use strobes, nice. Like in 1999. And so yeah, this is what he does. He shoots like all the marketing content for all these like teams. As you can see, he has a lot of like, I don't know if this is necessarily his portfolio. This might be where he like distributes all his stuff, or he does like some of the consumer direct stuff he does. But
right. Yeah, what is a smug mug? I don't know what that is.
I think it's like a kind of like a Dropbox where you can log in and download stuff. So like one of my first jobs with him was in his basement recategorizing slide film that he had sent to Sports Illustrated that they were like returning to him. So like he worked for Sports Illustrated and like ESPN the magazine, freelance, and
that's badass.
Yeah, he's a good dude. I saw him this last year. He was in town for a photo shoot. I mean, like I remember when his kid was born and like she graduated college. So anyway, it's cool. I got to see his like family grow up, and he still lives in the town that I went to college in. So that's two. This is kind of like most influential. I'd say those two guys. And then I just have to say Jeff Z, because I wanted to impress him so bad. Sending him photos and such a great dude.
He has seen it all, dude. It's so crazy. He's still prolific and this involved because he's been going hard since forever. What was your first introduction to Jeff Z?
Oh, probably an email with some terrible photo that I thought he would want for sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's 3.
Oh shoot, I forgot Mount Rushmore is.
Yeah. That's man.
Photographers, man.
Fucking prolific. Jeff Z is prolific.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Oh, Brian Gaberman. I'd say Brian Gaberman in terms of like Brian Gaberman, like skateboard photography. I think he was like staff at the Skateboarder.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yeah. Gaberman stuff was super dope. Yeah, I'm a bit of Yeah, he had this like photo of Corey Duffel. See if we can find it. Like Brian Gaberman, Corey Duffel. He had like a Corey Duffel interview. And it was like Corey Duffel carrying like an umbrella or something. It was like a lifestyle photo. And it was like for a feature. And dude, I just always would remember that photo. It looked like he was like walking in the desert with like an umbrella that was like had the like cover blown off it or something. And there were like Joshua trees in the background or some like really gnarled trees. Corey Duffel, Brian Gaberman, Skateboarder magazine, maybe. Yeah, anyway, I just remember it like being a really, and this dude shot with like 4x5 view cameras too, which I've never done. So like, I don't know. He was like a real photography aficionado.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I'm looking for something and I forget to talk. I'm like, oh, I just remembered. I was like, oh, I'm on a podcast. It's just fucking. All right. This has been a treat. The Mount Rushmore was even forced. We didn't talk about BMX that much, which I appreciate and I like. I'm sure if I came a little bit more prepared with some, tell me about this shit, we could have done great. But hopefully we did just fine for the time that we did. And I greatly appreciate you doing this. I gotta get this edited so I can release it in the morning.
All right. Well, I gotta clean my cameras, and I have 3-day studio shoot this week, so
let's go.
Back to the grind.
All right. Do me a favor. I'm gonna take a picture. There we go. And then for the thumbnail, I'm gonna make you big, and you just freaking smile, dude. Where is it? Right there. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me see if I can
smile and look at the lens. Yeah, that's it. That's it. All right, we're leaving that in. Thanks for watching and listening. Any last words, Justin Kosman?
Appreciate our friendship, and I look forward to big things from you in the next 365 days.
Let's go. Okay, my dudes, that is it. More power to you for sticking through it for that long. But I listen to podcasts, dude. I appreciate the long ones. Like, helps power through a good day of work and all that. So I appreciate the couple of you that have messaged me on Instagram, encouraging me. It means a lot because this is like talking into a void. I know you guys are real. I see the numbers and shit, but it's like, who are you really? I ain't got no relationship with you. While you're here on the YouTube channel, please subscribe. And if you're not on the YouTube channel, you're just listening and waiting for this to end so that you can move on to the next one. Please rate the show on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And I think that actually helps a lot. Also, Bike Check is coming soon. Cool announcement at the end of the video. Who cares? All right, whatever. Go listen to your next podcast. Have a great day.